Hi. Good morning. How are you guys? Mko aje? Baridi inawapeleka vipi? Mmeshanyeshewa? Floods, we have flooded over here. How are you over there? KBC kumenyesha? Ama drainage iko proper? Good morning to you. You're right on time for the Senate live proceedings. This being a morning sitting of the Senate on the 24th of April, the year being 2024. A broadcast brought to you courtesy of the collaboration between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Units. In the highlights in the order paper this morning, we have a couple of motions as set for a consideration and debate by members. Among the motions is the status of pending bills in counties. This is a motion by the Senator for Narok County, Senator Ledama Olekina, that aware that as of 31st of December 2023, according to the county government's budget implementation review report for the first half of the financial year 2023-2024, the county governments have accumulated a total of 156.34 billion shillings in pending bills. Nairobi City County accumulating the largest share of 107 billion shillings, followed by Kiambu County and Mombasa counties at 5.7 and 3.9 respectively, concerned that the accumulated pending bills in counties have significantly affected service providers in the counties, leading to the closure of businesses as well as stalling of the county projects. And this has adversely affected economic growth in counties, matters to do with service delivery, and ultimately slowing down the country's economic growth. The senator, who is the mover of this particular motion, is concerned that most of the service providers in the counties are battling court cases lodged against them by their financiers and suppliers, while others are languishing in poverty, exacerbated by the increased cost of living, with the increased mental health diseases incidences, and others are dying as a result of the effects of the colossal amount of debt owed to them by the county government. In this particular motion, the Senator for Narok County seeks to have the Senate recommend that all the county governments pay verified pending bills amounting to less than 1 billion shillings by the end of the financial year, and those above 1 billion shillings by the end of the financial year 2024-2024. The other resolution is that the Senate, pursuant to the provisions of regulations of 41 subsection 2 and 3 of the Public Finance Management, this is County Government's Regulations of 2015, the county governments do prioritize the payment of pending bills as a first charge on the county revenue fund, failure to which the subsequent quarters budget releases will not be done. The other resolution in regards to matters to do with pending bills in counties is that county governments shall not pay pending bills contained in the respective procurement plans pursuant to regulations 50 subsection 2 and 3 of the Public Finance Management of the county government's regulations. Similarly, there should be supplementary budgets for the county governments that are prepared in the third quarter, and according to the senator, this will curb instances of arbitrary reallocations out of the approved budgets and estimates. And the county government shall, at number 4, conduct public participation while formulating supplementary budgets. And according to the Senator from Narok, failure to conduct public participation in regards to formulation of supplementary budgets, the control of budget shall not approve the supplementary budgets. This is a motion that senators will be resuming debate on this morning that has a balance of about give and take 3 hours. The Senate this morning is also set to consider another motion, and from the look of the business in the order paper this morning, it appears it is a full entry of motions. And the other motion lined up for debate this morning is a report of the 66th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference held in Accra, Ghana from the 30th September to the 6th of October 2023. This is a motion by nominated Senator Professor Margaret Kamar that the Senate notes the report of the 66th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference held in Accra, Ghana from the 30th of September to the 6th of October 2023. The caucus that represented the Kenyan Parliament to Ghana laid its report on the table of the House on the 15th of February, the year being 2024. This being a Wednesday morning, usually, according to the standing orders of the House, we expect cabinet secretaries to appear before the Senate plenary to answer questions by senators. The Cabinet Secretary for Matters Foreign and Diaspora Affairs is set to appear before senators this morning. And among the questions that Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is also in charge of the Foreign Affairs docket, is set to answer questions from the Senator for Kakamega County, Senator Dr. Boni Halwale, who wants Honorable Mudavadi to disclose the number and identities of all Kenyans currently working in the Gulf states. The CS will also be required to tell the House how many Kenyans have lost lives while working in Gulf states from 2022 to date. The business of the Senate is just about to commence. Honorable Speaker Amason Jeffa Kingi is in the chambers this morning. Allow me to hand you over.
Tuombe. Mwenyezi Mungu, twakusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba utujalie tuyatende na kufikia mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao wamezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, do you have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffa Kingi, currently presiding over the business of the Senate this morning, has directed the Sergeant at Arms to ring the quorum bell, and this particular directive is guided by the House standing orders, owing to the mere fact that at this time, the House lacks the requisite quorum to commence business this morning. According to the newly amended standing orders that guides the business operations of the House, at least 15 senators are required to be in the chamber at any particular time when the House is rising. As we await for that quorum to be attained, Allow me to keep taking you through the highlights in the order of business this morning, where according to the House standing orders, cabinet secretaries usually appear before the Senate on Wednesday morning, but we'll be expecting communication from the Speaker in regards to if indeed the cabinet secretaries will be appearing before Senate plenaries this morning. The Senator for Kakamega County, Senator Dr. Boni Halwale, will be asking the cabinet secretary for matters to do with foreign and diaspora affairs, Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, on what support does the government provide for families of Kenyans who die while overseas, and could the cabinet secretary also explain any actions being undertaken by the government to facilitate the repatriation of the body of Miss Mildred Busolo Lisanza, a deceased person from Saudi Arabia, to Malinya, a village in Kakamega County. This being a matter that has previously elicited mixed reactions in regards to regulation of Kenyan employment in the Gulf countries. We'll be keen to see what the Prime Cabinet Secretary will be telling members this morning. The Prime Cabinet Secretary for matters diaspora and foreign affairs will also be answering questions from the Senator for Kisumu County, Senator Professor Tom Ojenda, who wants the Prime Cabinet Secretary to outline the obligations of the government of Kenya to Kenyans in the diaspora who face arrest, detention, deportation, as well as highlight any diplomatic agreements entered into with other countries on applicable protocols. The senator also wants to understand what protocols has the government established for readmitting deportees into the country, and could the cabinet secretary also provide a list of Kenyans deported back to the country since the year 2010, stating reasons for each case where a deportee was refused admission. The House also wants to understand how the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs handles complaints and reports on matters to do with human rights violations against Kenyans in diaspora before, in the course, and after detention and deportation. And could the Cabinet Secretary disclose the number of Kenyans who have died in detention and also provide details of all court cases initiated by Kenyans regarding violations in foreign countries? Finally, the CS will be required to tell the House if there are measures, if any, that the government has put in place to safeguard dependents and property left behind by deportees, and also explain the initiative taken by the government to facilitate the reintegration processes of deportees into the country. The House this morning will debate a motion on the report of the 9th Inter-Parliamentary Union IPU Global Conference on the Young Parliamentarians held in Hanoi, Vietnam from the 15th to the 17th of September 2023. This particular motion is spearheaded by the lead head of this delegation of the Kenyan Young Parliamentarians. And in the Senate, we have Honorable John Methu. And in this particular motion, is that the Senate notes the report of the 9th Inter-Parliamentary Union Global Conference of Young Parliamentarians held in Vietnam from the 15th to the 17th of September. The caucus that represented the Kenyan Young Parliamentarians tabled its report on the table of the House on the 5th of March this year, being 2024. The other business lined up for consideration this morning is a motion by the Senator for Mombasa County, Senator Mohamed Haji Faki, and this is a motion in regards to the construction of a stadium. It is a motion in Kiswahili on kuidhinishwa kwa ruzuku ya masharti ya ujenzi wa uwanja wa manispaa ya Mombasa. And to just take you through some of the in-depth in regards to this construction of a municipal stadium in Mombasa, is that the Senator, through this motion, is seeking approval of conditional grant for the construction of Mombasa Municipal Stadium. In this particular motion, it is that aware that Part 2 of the 4th schedule to the Constitution of Kenya obligates the county governments with the responsibility to develop, establish, manage, as well as maintain sports and cultural facilities, which include stadiums, sports arena, and cultural centers, and other related infrastructure, noting that the entire coastal region of the country lacks a modern stadium built to international standards, thereby depriving the people the benefits that come with a stadium and sports facilities. Is that now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the National Treasury, the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Matters Creative Economy and Sports allocates a conditional grant to the county government of Mombasa amounting to 1.7 billion shillings for the completion of the Mombasa Stadium. In this particular motion, the Senator for Mombasa says kwamba kunao wasiwasi kwamba ujenzi wa uwanja wa michezo wa manispaa ya Mombasa umekumbwa na ucheleweshaji na vikwazo. Hii ni tangia kuanzishwa kwa mradi huo mwaka 2019. Kulingana na Senator wa Mombasa, anasema kwamba ujenzi wa uwanja huu unatokana na matatizo ya kifedha ambayo yameathiri utekelezaji wa mradi na kunyima jamii za maeneo ya Mombasa uwanja unaohitajika sana. Seneta wa Mombasa katika mjadala huu analitaka bunge la Seneti liazimie kwamba hazina ya kitaifa na wizara ya masuala ya vijana, uchumi na ubunifu pamoja na michezo itengee serikali ya kaunti ya Mombasa ruzuku ya masharti ya shilingi bilioni 1.7. Hii ni kwa ajili ya kukamilisha ujenzi wa uwanja wa manispaa ya Mombasa. Hii leo asubuhi tunatarajia Seneti na bunge la Seneti kurejelea kuzungumzia mswada huu ambao umeletwa katika bunge la Seneti na seneta wa kaunti ya Mombasa, Seneta Haji Mohamed Faki, ambaye anataka kuidhinishwa kwa ruzuku ya masharti ya ujenzi wa uwanja wa manispaa ya Mombasa. Na kulingana na seneta wa Mombasa ni kwamba hali hiyo itachangia katika kuinua hali ya michezo katika kaunti ya Mombasa. Our dear viewers, the other motion lined up for consideration this morning is a motion by nominated Senator Crystal Lasige on establishing of a monthly car-free day and county car-free zones. The nominated senator says in this particular motion that aware that Kenyans have a right to a clean and healthy environment pursuant to Article 42 of the Constitution, and noting that the National Climate Change Action Plan identifies matters to do with transportation as the 4th largest contributor to the greenhouse gas emissions, which, if uncontrolled, will result to a negative impact of climate change with adverse effect to millions of Kenyans, and concerned that the number of private vehicles has significantly grown, leading to an increased road accidents, carbon change and forestry in collaboration with the Council of Governors and the National Climate Change Council. There are issues to do with carbon emissions and vehicle congestion, costs that are in excess of 100 billion shillings in GDP per year. In this particular motion, Senator Crystal Asige seeks to have the House resolve that the Senate urges the Ministry of Road and Transport, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, these particular ministries, in collaboration with the Council of Governors and the National Climate Change Council, are required to do a couple of stuff, about 5 to be specific. Among them is identify, publicize, as well as execute a suitable monthly car-free days and county car-free zones in urban areas across the country. The quorum has been attained. Allow me to hand you over for this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Enjoy your viewing.
Clerk, proceed to call the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Now, honorable senators, at SBC yesterday, the indication was that we were expecting 2 CSs this morning for purposes of responding questions posed by honorable senators. During the day yesterday, the CS Gender, Culture and Arts called me that she will not be able to attend this session because at SBC we had indicated, having read through her letter, where she had indicated that she will be going to State House to brief His Excellency the President on matters touching on her ministry. As SBC, we indicated that she could go brief His Excellency the President at 9 and maybe appear before us at 11 a.m. However, she called me indicating that immediately after briefing His Excellency the President, she is supposed to proceed to the airport to catch a flight on official duties. And therefore, I found that very reasonable, and due to that reason, she is not here today for purposes of responding to that question, number 25 by the Senator for Kirinyaga County, Senator James Murango, who in fact is not in the House. Now, as far as question 37 and 40 are concerned, we had no indication whatsoever when we sat as SBC as to whether the Honorable CS, who is the Prime Cabinet Secretary, will not be present for purpose of responding to those 2 questions. And therefore, the indication was that we were expecting the CS, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, to be before this House today for purposes of responding to those 2 questions. However, yesterday at 4 p.m., a letter was received by the Clerk of the Senate indicating that the Prime Cabinet Secretary would not be in a position to appear before the Senate for purposes of responding to those 2 questions. Now, honorable senators, I find the conduct of the Prime Cabinet Secretary unacceptable. If, having gone through the letter, there is no emergency, that reason given there, it's a reason that the Prime Cabinet Secretary knew long before that he will be undertaking the assignment indicated in that letter. And courtesy demands that he ought to have indicated the same to the Senate long before SBC sat to schedule these questions. So, honorable senators, as far as question time is concerned, we have no CS today for purposes of responding to any of those questions that had been slated for today. We will therefore proceed with the other business indicated in the order paper, unless, of course, the majority leader has something to share with the Senate. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this is a very grave matter, and I don't think the fact that the minister called you is sufficient. She may have called you maybe on matters to do with Kilifi County, but not with the Senate, because she is not invited here to come and meet the Speaker. And much as you extended courtesy of receiving her call, the minister needs to know that this House is terribly disappointed in her conduct. CS Jumwa, a long-serving parliamentarian who's been here in Parliament for over 10 years, knows very well that when there is a conflict of diaries between the executive and appearance in Parliament, the legislature takes precedence. I know President William Ruto very well. If any minister were to tell him that I cannot make it to your meeting because I am scheduled to appear before Parliament, he can never recall that minister to appear before them, either at cabinet or at an official briefing, at the expense of the representatives of the people. This behavior by CS Jumwa is something that I find quite astounding, because while ministers and her colleagues have been before this House 3, 4, 5 times, her and the Prime Cabinet Secretary are the two ministers that have never set foot in the Senate. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'd wish, with your guidance, and I'm willing to be persuaded by colleagues, maybe who you may grant an opportunity to say a thing or two about this, the conduct of these two ministers, Mr. Speaker, that let us be bound by the collective reasoning of the House, because it is not proper for, I have seen the letter from the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. There's an officer by the name Joseph N. Busiega. These are people who need not be in public offices, and I'm not excusing the Prime Cabinet Secretary. But by the time you're writing a letter at 3:57 p.m. for a meeting that is supposed to happen the following morning at 9 a.m., are you normal? Do you know what you're doing in that public office, Mr. Speaker? This cannot be entertained. And I cannot allow Parliament, Mr. Speaker, to be treated like this. Therefore, we have to register our disappointment with both ministers in the strongest terms possible, including the amendment that we have just done to the Powers and Privilege Act, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the amendment is yet to become official law of the land, because it still has to go through the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. But if it were up to me, we need to issue summons to both ministers, because, first of all, we need to establish whether they recognize that Parliament is bicameral. And therefore, because I am sure they have appeared before our colleagues in the National Assembly, and therefore I don't get what their spite about the Senate is and what their motivation might be, Mr. Speaker. There is nothing that members are begging. You're coming to respond to issues of the representatives of the people, which the people of Kenya are asking you as a minister through their elected representatives in this House. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to be guided by colleagues in their consideration of this matter, so that we make a decision jointly as a House on what to do. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we will eventually have to make a decision on the number of times a minister can skip appearance, and the maximum number they need to exhaust on postponement. especially postponement. We issued directives the other day on what is a standard letter that you write to Parliament. It cannot be, you just say you can't appear, no suggestion when you are next available, no credible reason why you're not appearing. Therefore, without appearing to be lamenting, Mr. Speaker, I want to humbly request that we take a decision as a House on what to do with these two ministers. I thank you.
Senator Sifuna.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, you caught me just confirming with the law on whether this House can actually impose the same sort of sanctions that we've seen imposed by committees on witnesses who fail to appear before those committees. And I think I've said enough about CS Jumwa, and I have no more to say. As a legislator, you have advised us on more than one occasion that this cannot be a house of lamentations. So I think we need to proceed and impose a fine in accordance with the law for the non-appearance of the CS Jumwa. As to my brother, the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, I have never seen him in this house since these rules were promulgated and the number of times that has been invited here. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I have the privilege of sitting on the SBC, and I remember one time he's the one who wrote a letter to this house saying that you cannot summon a cabinet secretary if there is only one question to answer, and that we should wait until there is enough material for him to be able to appear before this house. And I remember the direction that we took as SBC. We said it could be the most critical question in the country right now. And I want to thank some of the CSs who have appeared here. Last week, Honorable Speaker, the CS for Defense, Aden Duale, appeared to answer one question on the reopening of Uhuru Park. And I think he left everybody here satisfied. The people of Nairobi are happy. The park is now open. We cannot be told such stories, Mr. Speaker. And because you have directed us that we should not be a house of lamentations, I want the fate that befalls Aisha Jumwa to befall the CS for Foreign Affairs, so that he also feels the pinch. And I want to request that we expedite the changes that we made to the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, so that, Mr. Speaker, the enhanced fine might be a dissuasion, or might dissuade some people from failing to appear before the Senate. Mr. Speaker, it has been a very difficult night here in Nairobi because we are trying to coordinate responses to incidents of flooding all across the city, and I'm sure this is a matter that everyone is aware of. But even though we did not get much sleep, we woke up in time to be able to be here this morning because we have critical questions to answer. And if you look at the range of questions and the discussion that we were to have here, especially on arrest, detention, and deportation of Kenyans in diaspora, these are critical matters, Mr. Speaker. I have a very critical case that has gone on, I think, since before the elections. One of our key supporters from Western Kenya, Professor Ruth Onyango, her son was arrested in the US during the crackdown on the opioid epidemic, Mr. Speaker. And he is a qualified doctor, pharmacist. And that young man has languished in jail at an undisclosed location, and we are unable to get any information on his whereabouts and whether he's okay. It would have been a nice opportunity for the CS, who comes from that very same county where that young man comes from, to give answers to the family of that young boy. So, Mr. Speaker, I express my disappointment, but I want us to proceed in line with the law and impose those fines and issue summons so that if they fail to appear, other consequences can follow. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, on my part, Mr. Speaker, I rise on defense of the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi was before our committee for delegated legislation 2 days ago. He came on time, waited, and we had to wait for quorum to form. He went to the office, he came back and appeared before us and tackled every question that we put before us, that we put before him. So I'm very surprised that today his behavior is totally different from what he displayed at the committee. And I know that the very heavy issue that we were tackling there, we were able to find a way forward. Mr. Speaker, having said all that, the issue I was trying to drive at is that there are some cabinet secretaries who have defied this House. And there are some cabinet secretaries who have been very cooperative with this House. Now, the question is, are we speaking with records? Are we speaking with facts? Mr. Speaker, I have a recollection of your ruling that guided that we should not be people to lament on issues. Instead, we should take action, which Honorable Sifuna has proposed. But the way you actually guided is not what the Honorable Senator is proposing. What you said is that a proper motion should be brought for us to censure. My own take, Mr. Speaker, is that nothing stops the majority leader, Mr. Speaker, from originating a letter when he's giving his weekly statement. Instead of just talking of how many questions we have done, how many statements we have done, what the committees have done, he should also say that there is this minister and that minister and that minister who never turned up, so that we have a proper record. And when we then move, we are all in agreement as a House that this particular minister didn't turn up, and in the weekly report by the majority leader, he didn't show up on this date, on this date, on this date, so that we can have a track, and then when we come, we pass a unanimous vote. But Mr. Speaker, the way it is that we are talking without really putting the facts on the table, it would not be helpful. So, Mr. Speaker, I am urging also action on the side of the majority leader to be mentioning these things. When he is doing that weekly report, he must also say the following ministers failed to turn up, so that we can note them, and then at the appropriate time, either him or the minority leader can bring a proper motion which should be unanimous, because we'll be referring to a record of absenteeism and failure to exercise duty. Mr. Speaker, as I sit down, I would urge the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Foreign Affairs. The question Honorable Kalwale is asking about deaths of people who are working outside in the Gulf states is a very relevant question, especially, Mr. Speaker, for those of us who come from the coast. All the 6 counties, Mr. Speaker, including Tana River County, there are many, many, many people who go to the Gulf and they do work there. And we have people who have suffered there. And I have some cases that I would have wanted to interrogate. I am asking the Cabinet Secretary, when it comes to matters of life, when matters of death, he should prioritize and come here as soon as possible to come and answer to this question. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader, what is your intervention?
Mr. Speaker, I have a further update. The CS for Gender insists that probably there must have been a miscommunication between you and him, you and her rather. She says the request she made is that between 11 and 12, that she'd wish to appear later, not to be the first to appear. Therefore, finds the fact that it is still 10 o'clock, that it's premature for us to pass judgment that she's not appearing. And I say that she's finishing up the briefing and will be here by midday. But I'm on a point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed and conclude, Majority Leader.
I have concluded. I have nothing useful to add because it's on your direction, Mr. Speaker, for us to know. Because the letter that she has, remember when we made the decision at SBC yesterday, we told her to appear at 11. The only adjustment she made was that, let me come at 12. Therefore, I stand guided up to that much. I have seen a copy of the letter. We had told her to come at 11.
Thank you. Now, Honorable Senators, let us make progress. I know that the House is extremely disappointed. You are unhappy with the conduct of the cabinet secretaries, not just today, for the many times that cabinet secretaries have opted not to respect invitations from this House. If we proceed and I give each one of you, the story will be the same, expressing disappointment and displeasure at the conduct of these cabinet secretaries. Now that we have an indication that the Honorable Aisha Jumwa will be with us and will appear before this House at noon, we will proceed under Standing Order 45 to rearrange the sequence of today's order paper so that we proceed with other business as indicated in the order paper, and then once she appears at 12, we will proceed to give her an opportunity to respond to the question that has been directed to her. As far as the Prime Cabinet Secretary is concerned, if the House or any one of you is persuaded that his non-appearance and the reason given for that non-appearance is unreasonable, then you can invoke Standing Order 51D. Otherwise, honorable senators, if it's lamenting you have done enough, you need to proceed to take action on this matter. Next Wednesday, I will not be surprised if we may not go through the same motion of lamenting. So the Honorable Senator Majority Leader and the Honorable Senator Minority Leader, you need to put this matter to rest. We cannot allow 1 hour, 2 hours of honorable senators lamenting every Wednesday morning. It's either you bite, or when a cabinet secretary does not appear, we just proceed. But we can no longer use our precious time to lament honorable senators. So to the two leaders, you need to lay this matter to rest. Either you. Yes, Honorable. Very well. Honorable Senator.
Speaker, I wanted to seek your clarification on whether the options of this House are limited to the provisions of Standing Order 51D. And the clarity I'm seeking is, why is the option of the fines and other penalties that are available to the committee not available to this House as a whole? That's a clarification I wanted to seek, because this censure motion route is a longer route. At the Committee of Energy, my chairperson, the Honorable Matinga, fines people liberally for failing to appear. I don't know why that is not an action we can take this morning for the failure to appear by the CS, because we are not satisfied with the explanation that he has given.
Very well. Honorable Kalwale.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'm rising for clarification, not to doubt or challenge your direction. Mr. Speaker, you cannot dose the responsibility of 51D to the House. This House has a leader of majority. He was the first to state, Mr. Speaker, that we be guided by the decision of this House about the failure of the Prime Cabinet Secretary to appear. Mr. Speaker, the clarification I'm looking for is that you make two pronouncements. The first one is that on our behalf, you direct the leader of the majority to present a motion of censure against the minister. The second one, Mr. Speaker, is for you to read from the same page with the chairs of all our committees, led by the Senator of Kiambu and the Senator of Nyeri. They have been fining governors. From that chair, you pronounce a fine against the responsible minister. And finally, Mr. Speaker, on clarification, if you look at this letter, it is written by the Chief of Staff, Mr. Joseph Usieka. I have never seen in my entire life in this parliament a situation whereby a stranger in a ministry who we don't understand is addressing the Senate or Parliament for that matter. If the Cabinet Secretary is for whatever reason unable to write this letter, it should have been written by the accounting officer, who is the principal secretary. Who is this fellow? I know he comes from my home in Malaba, but Mr. Speaker, that is for purposes of doing funerals at home and weddings and all manner of things. But for purposes of official communication, the Cabinet Secretary must be warned from allowing strangers to address the Senate. A Chief of Staff is a very small thing, and he's not an accounting officer. The accounting officer, Mr. Speaker, is the principal secretary, whose appointment was approved by Parliament.
Senator Wambua.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are guided, we will not lament. Mr. Speaker, two issues. One, the matter raised by Senator Halwale on who can address the Senate and who cannot. Mr. Speaker, you need to protect this House and protect committees. The other day, Mr. Speaker, the governor for Nairobi, when he decided he was not going to appear before the Committee on Roads, he sent an acting officer to write to the committee and tell the committee that he cannot attend a meeting. The Speaker, protect this House. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, because this is likely to happen again and again, you have said that the SBC had agreed that the Cabinet Secretary for Gender was supposed to appear at 11, but later on, it now appears, if we take what the majority leader said, and you have no reason to doubt it, that there was further communication from the minister that she will appear from noon. The Speaker, for guidance, how was that communication done? Was it in writing? Or was it just a conversation, and then it was agreed that she will come at noon? Mr. Speaker, we don't lament because we want to lament. We lament because we are in trouble, Mr. Speaker. If we found ourselves in this situation, what do? Did she write to say, I will come at noon, or did she call and say, I'll come at noon? And what then will stop the other cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, from altering the time that they're going to appear by just placing a call to maybe your office or the office of the majority leader and say, good people, I was supposed to come at 9, I'll be appearing at noon or at 11. So the House can do whatever they want to do and wait for me to appear at noon. Mr. Speaker, let's correct this. Thank you.
Senator Kathuri.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me also this opportunity to make a comment on this matter. Mr. Speaker, where I sit as the chairperson committee, and when we discuss with the chairs, we have like a backlog of statements and petitions. Almost the whole statements are almost now 400, which have not been responded to. Petitions are more than 20 petitions. And the reason, Mr. Speaker, the chairs are complaining that the cabinet secretaries are not honoring their meetings when they are summoned when they are requested to appear before the committees. So, Mr. Speaker, if this trend continues, then the work of the Senate will be paralyzed. And if this is the trend, the majority leader, then we should do away with this question time so that we can divert to our issue of business. Because we cannot sit as Senate, through actually the executive, the chief executive of this republic, no other than the president. Actually, this was his brainchild when he was elected as the president. And if this thing is not working for the Senate, And for the National Assembly, then there is no need of having this question time by the ministers. Let us just survive the way we have been surviving. So that's also the work of the senators. Petitions in this House, Mr. Speaker, and I will request also the Director Ruger to give you some time so that you can listen to us. Mr. Speaker, petitions in this House are brought by citizens themselves, most of them. And when we stay with the petitions for 5 months, 6 months without responding to a petition, which has been brought by some communities because they are oppressed, they have issues, then, Mr. Speaker, this House looks very bad to the public. And, Mr. Speaker, that is why we should have a discussion about, do we need to have the CSs appearing before this House? Do we revert to the issue tradition? Which system is working for the Senate? So that, Mr. Speaker, we can be able to expedite our work. I was reporting that we have more than 400 statements which have not been responded to. Actually, the statements have been brought to this House by the members, our fellow senators. And when we meet as liaison, like we'll be doing today at 1, we have no alternative. We just read the figures. How many statements are pending? 400. How many petitions which have exceeded the 60 days? Almost 30 petitions. So, Mr. Speaker, we really need to have a candid discussion. Majority, and I will send you to the House in the Hill and tell our boss, not our boss, but the President, that we are not doing so well in this matter on appearance of cabinet secretaries. It is not good for a cabinet secretary to call the Speaker by phone that I'm not appearing, or call the majority leader. No. These cabinet secretaries should just do correspondence. The PSs, the clerk of the Senate, writes directly to the PS, communicating anything from the Senate. The same way, only the PS should communicate to the clerk of the Senate. Actually, this letter should be null and void, because this is what we call in Kiswahili madharau. So we need Senate to be treated the way it should be treated. We are very honorable people, even out there when you see us. But the way these CSs are treating us, it's just like primary school or high school boys. So, Mr. Speaker, this House should be respected, and I think we should not, at any time again, that we have put it, Honorable Speaker, that we should come here to whine and to cry, but let action be taken. Mr. Majority, don't bother calling any CS to appear. The one who is not interested to appear, we then use 51D promptly so that we can be able to censor these people. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Senator Ledama. No, clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was listening to my brother, the Deputy Speaker. And let me say that I like what he was saying. And Majority Leader, my good friend, you know, in reality, the order paper belongs to you because you're the Majority Leader. So when we sit here and start lamenting, we're actually lamenting and pointing a finger at you. You know, I would not want to say that you're failing, but other people could conclude that. This House must be respected. When we stood here, Mr. Speaker, and some of us argued, we interpreted Article 153 of the Constitution to say that a cabinet secretary can only appear before a committee of the House. And it's actually, they are mandated to appear when they're invited to do so. But the judiciary ruled it so it fit that they also appear before plenary. Now that they are here, and that is the reason why we decided to be here, because our side of the House had decided not to attend, because we did not want to violate the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the only thing we ought to do now is to look at the provisions of the laws that gives us powers to punish these individuals who fail to appear. Section 19 of our Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act is quite clear that whereas a witness has been invited or someone to appear but fails to appear, there are consequences. So I don't know why we are lamenting here. I think we should just do what we did in the last Parliament. In the last Parliament, and the majority leader was seated here. We censured the Cabinet Secretary of Energy then. And there were consequences that followed. You know, some people, see as if we just come here to talk and talk and talk, but we've got a lot of power. So this power that we have, Mr. Speaker, I want to beseech you to allow this House. And now, since you are the one seated there, you are like the chair of that committee. I think you should be the first one to say that we are now going to apply Section 19 of our Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, so that these people can be able to respect this House. The other day we were given a credit. They said that we are doing better than the National Assembly. We are doing better than the National Assembly because we are diligent and we know the law, we know our rights, and we know the powers. We are here as ombudspersons of citizens who have sent us here to represent them. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to beseech you that we become decisive in our decision-making. We send strong messages. Because, seriously, when I saw the president saying that he's going to now ensure that the cabinet secretaries appear before the floor of the House, when they fail to appear, what does that mean? I don't want to use slang, but it's like they're showing him the middle finger. Utadu. You know, Mr. Speaker, this is something that we need to be very serious about. We have to respect. The Speaker has got to be respected. Even the President has got to be respected. So, Mr. Speaker, I
think, honorable senators, let this debate lie there. I have indicated and advised that the recourse you have and the recourse that this Senate has, where a cabinet secretary fails to appear without any reasonable cause, then you may invoke Standing Order 51D. So, honorable senators, the reasons you're giving, the contributions you're making are so relevant and will give weight to such a motion. I wish to hear the kind of debate when you're debating that motion. Because as we are talking now, at the end of the day, no resolution can be passed as far as the failure of these CSs is concerned. So majority leader and the minority leader take leadership in this matter. As far as what Senator Sifuna has alluded to, that then can this House, sitting at plenary, impose a fine, just like a committee? Of course we can, but it is the procedure, because you need to pass a resolution. The Speaker cannot impose a fine. The fine can only be imposed by this House through a resolution of this House. So how do we then proceed as a House? Even the amount, even the amount. And my advice will be, what Senator Sifuna has alluded to is very valid, and it is something that next Tuesday, as we sit as SBC, we'll put our heads together so that we neaten out the procedure on how this House can resolve on imposing a fine to a cabinet secretary who has failed to attend. That will be my advice for today. Honorable senators, let us now proceed to tackle the other business in our order paper as we wait for the CS agenda at noon. The mode of communication, yes, that's an issue that has been put forward for determination by honorable senators. The only officer who can communicate to the Senate just like in the Senate, the only officer who communicates with other institutions out there is the clerk. As far as ministries are concerned, the only officer that will accept the communication is either the permanent secretary or the CS themselves. Any other letter, any letter written by any officer other than the PS or the CS will be deemed a no communication. So, clerk, this communication has to be communicated to all honorable CSs, that if the Senate received a letter that has no hand of the PS or the Cabinet Secretary, it shall not be deemed to be a communication to the Senate. Kindly communicate that. Now, honorable senators, allow me to invoke Standing Order 45 to rearrange the order paper. Instead of proceeding to discuss order number 8, which is a motion by the Honorable Senator for Mombasa, we will proceed to prosecute order number 9. That is the motion on the status of pending bills in counties. So, clerk, proceed to call that order, please.
Order number 9, motion. Status of pending bills in counties. Resumption of debate interrupted on Thursday, 20th March 2024.
Honorable Mwaruma.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa hii fursa umenipa ili kuchangia huu mswada ulioletwa na Senator wa Narok, Senator Ledama Olekina, kuhusu malipo ya wanakandarasi ambao wamefanya kazi kwa serikali zetu za county. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia huu mswada imesemekana kwamba ama vile hali ilivyo katika kaunti zetu ni kwamba kuna wakandarasi wengi wamefanya kazi lakini hawajalipwa, na hili limepelekea hawa wanakandarasi kufunga biashara zao, wengine wamejiua. Banki nyingi zimekataa saizi kupatia wakandarasi ambao wanafanya kazi na county government ama serikali za county pesa, na hii imepelekea umaskini mwingi, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hawa wanakandarasi. Nakubaliana moja kwa moja, Mheshimiwa Spika, ya kwamba ni vyema sheria ifuatwe wakati tunalipa wakandarasi, kwa sababu sheria, Mheshimiwa Spika, inasema ya kwamba wakati tumeanza mwaka mpya wa pesa, basi zile pesa za pending bills ziwe za kwanza kulipwa katika pesa yoyote ambayo itapatikana katika ama itaenda kwa county, serikali za county. Mheshimiwa Spika, ufisadi ndio unaopelekea ukosefu wa kulipwa kwa wakandarasi, kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, hili jambo Kenya ambalo linaitwa 10% ama watu kutaka hongo ili kupeana kandarasi, watu wengi katika kaunti zetu huwa wamepata pesa tayari kwa zile kandarasi zimefanyika, na wakati wamepata pesa za kaunti, badala ya kulipa wakandarasi, basi wanatumia zile pesa ili kupeana zabuni mpya ili wapate, Mheshimiwa Spika, ile 10%. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, hii imepelekea malimbikizi ya pesa ambazo zinatakana kulipwa wakandarasi, na zimefikia, Mheshimiwa Spika, zaidi ya bilioni 107, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa Nairobi kuna kaunti kama Mombasa ambayo inadaiwa bilioni 5.7 na bilioni hiyo ni ya Kiambu, na Mombasa bilioni 3.9. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kaunti yangu ya Taita Taveta saizi wakandarasi wanadai zaidi ya bilioni 1.2. Mheshimiwa Spika, la kushangaza ni kwamba hata wakati magatuzi yetu yanasema kwamba wameweka katika bajeti pesa za kulipa wakandarasi, hizo pending bills hazipungui. Taita Taveta kwa mfano mwaka uliopita wa 2022-2023 walilipa milioni 350, Mheshimiwa Spika, za pending bills. Lakini ukiangalia badala hizo pending bills pungue, bado zinaongezeka. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nakubaliana na yale mapendekezo yaliyo katika huu mswada ya kwamba controller of budget aangalie kwa ukaribu zile pending bills ambazo zinalipwa na pesa ambazo zinapitishwa na controller of budget, ili kama controller of budget ama county haijafanikisha ulipaji wa hizo pending bills, basi kuwe wasipawe pesa katika ile kota ambayo inafuatilia. Mheshimiwa Spika, na Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna kitu tunaona katika kaunti zetu, kwa kimombo inaitwa voided payments. Saa zingine controller of budget anapitisha pesa zilipwe kwa wakandarasi, lakini zile malipo wakati zinapitishwa na controller of budget hazilipwi kulingana na vile zimepitishwa, zinafanya kulipa mambo tofauti. Nafikiri ni vizuri mhasibu mkuu wa pesa aangalie kwa ukaribu ni kwa nini kunakuwa na hizo voided payments. Nikiangalia jana kulikuwa na statement ya seneta wa Kisii akiuliza ni kwa nini kunakuwa na hizo voided payments nyingi. Ni vizuri kuwe na maelezo kamili ni kwa nini controller of budget anapitisha pesa zilipwe kwa malipo aina fulani, lakini hayo malipo yanasimamishwa na malipo yanaenda kwa kazi tofauti. Nafikiri hili pia limepelekea kuongezeka kwa hizi pending bills. Mheshimiwa Speaker, pending bills zikiongezeka ni kuonyesha ya kwamba hakuna huduma zitatolewa katika kaunti zetu. Mheshimiwa Speaker, hili ni swala la kuvalia njuga. Hili ni swala ambalo kama Senate inatakikana tusimamishe kazi zote ili kuangazia, je, ni njia gani tutakayotumia kama Senate kuhakikisha ya kwamba pesa zinazopatikana kwa county zinatumika kwenda kulipa hizo pending bills, na kwamba zile county ambazo hazitalipa pending bills kulingana na kanuni 50(2) na 3 ya Public Finance Management Act Regulations, kuwe na adhabu ya kutosha. Na Mheshimiwa Speaker, kitu ingine ambayo inapelekea kulimbikiza kwa pending bills, na nafurahia huu mswada, ni supplementary budgets ama budget za ziada, kwa sababu wakati tunaendelea kutengeneza bajeti katika mwaka wa pesa, kuna pesa zinazotengwa za miradi kadha wa kadha, na kutengeneza bajeti kuna tumia uhusishaji ama public participation ya wananchi, na miradi yao wanajua ni miradi gani wanataka ifanyike. Lakini nafikia mahali kunakuwa na budget za ziada ama supplementary budget ambazo zinatoa miradi yao na wananchi hawaelewi ni kwa nini miradi yao haijafanyika. Na saa zingine maseneta wanalaumiwa ya kwamba pesa inaibiwa na nyinyi hamsemi kitu, kwa sababu mradi wetu wa wadi fulani ulikuwa katika bajeti, lakini mwaka umeisha na ule mradi haujafanyika. Alafu maseneta wanaambiwa, wanalaumiwa ya kwamba kwa nini pesa yetu inaibiwa na nyinyi hampigi makelele. Kumbe kuna supplementary budget imefanyika ambayo haijahusisha mwananchi. Kwa hivyo huu mswada unasema ya kwamba wakati supplementary budget inapotengenezwa, basi ni vizuri kuwe na public participation na wananchi wajue kama kuna mradi unaondolewa katika bajeti, umeondolewa kwa sababu gani, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Na la mwisho, Mheshimiwa Speaker, wakati wa supplementary budget kama haijahusisha mwananchi, basi control of budget asipitishe hiyo bajeti. Nimeona kama kwetu Taita Taveta wakati wa kutengeneza supplementary budget ambayo ni nafikiri ni ya 3 huu mwaka, pesa za ward zilikuwa milioni 20, lakini zimetolewa milioni 8 na zikabakia milioni 12. Wananchi hawajui kama kuna pesa milioni 8 zimetolewa zikaenda kujenga aggregation center ama industrial park ambao wao wenyewe hawajahusishwa kwamba kuna industrial park ambayo itajengwa. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, nafikiri inatakana tuchambue hizi bajeti kama Senate, na hii nafikiri ndio kazi ya Senate ya ndani zaidi ambayo inatakana ipatie kaunti zetu na wananchi meno ya kuhakikisha kwamba ile pesa wanayotoa kwa ushuru inatumika vile ilivyopangiwa. La sivyo, Mheshimiwa Speaker, tutakuwa tunapata malimbikizi ya pending bills, tutakuwa miradi haifanyiki na hatuelewi kwa nini haifanyiki, kumbe imetolewa kwa sababu ya supplementary budget ambayo haihusishi wananchi. Na haya malimbikizi ya pending bills yanatakana pia yawe criminalized, yafanywe kwamba ni jambo ambalo linaweza fanya watu wafungwe. Mheshimiwa Speaker, sipendi kuongea zaidi ya hapo, lakini naunga mkono huu mswada ulioletwa na Senator Lidama Olekina, na ningerai wenzangu waupitishe ili tuangalie utekelezaji wa haya mapendekezo ambayo yatapelekea kusaidia wananchi wetu ambao wanafanya kandarasi na serikali za kaunti, na pia kupelekea maendeleo yafanyike na huduma na miradi ifanyike kwa uzuri. Mheshimiwa Speaker, nashukuru sana kwa hii nafasi.
Senator Wamatinga.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. I also like to support this motion by Senator Fonaro. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of pending bill cuts across both governments, the national and the county government. Indeed, a very sad affair, because the governments, at both levels, have resorted to borrowing money from unwilling suppliers and contractors. These have seen, Mr. Speaker, sir, destruction of small enterprises, people who have been committed to supply goods, but they wait for years on end before they can get paid. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I stand up here, I stand as a proud Nyerian, because the Nyeri County is one of those counties that has 0 pending bill. They're working together, yes. I repeat, Nyeri County is one of those counties that has 0 pending bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, this came as a result of I, as the Senator of Nyeri County, and the Governor, and the County Assembly of Nyeri sitting together and agreeing that indeed these suppliers and contractors are people from Nyeri. They have supplied goods and services. And we indulged and agreed, Mr. Speaker, sir, before we do any new development, before we engage in any brick and mortar development, we ensure that we've paid all the pending bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would urge all the governors, and indeed all the PSs and the CSs, some of us who come from the construction industry, we've suffered many years, waiting years on end for monies that we've borrowed from banks before we get paid. Mr. Speaker, sir, this has ended up killing the morale of Kenyan investors, Kenyan entrepreneurs, and advantaged the foreign investors who do not need to rely on the exchequer, because they are able to access cheaper loans from their foreign countries' banks. They are able to get materials from foreign countries, and therefore, the local contractors, the local suppliers have not only been disadvantaged, but many companies, many industries have been destroyed as a result of the unwillingness of the national and the county government to honor the pending bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is not lost to us that we have an ever getting younger population in this country. We've been talking about access of government opportunities by youth and women and people living with disability. Mr. Speaker, sir, most of our youth live in urban setup. They do not have collateral that are required for them to access financial facilities from financial institutions. Therefore, they end up borrowing money from their relatives, they end up borrowing money from Chilocks, and at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker,
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the end of the day, because of non-performance on the part of the payment, Mr. Speaker, most of these young people who are the future of this country,
they end up not only demoralized, but some of them end up with mental issues because of depression. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is the high time that the governors of this country, those who have huge pending bills, starting with the governors of Nairobi, governor of Kiambu and the rest, they must look at it. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we've looked and analyzed and interrogated the issue of pending bill. And indeed, we have seen that those counties that have changed governors multiple times have very huge pending bills. Given the fact that those who get into the office are not prepared to honor the pending bills of their predecessors. This, Mr. Speaker, sir, has a double-pronged approach. One, it's because we know that corruption is deeply embedded in our procurement systems. The people who run the procurement systems and the supply chain management, they do prefer to give new tenders, to issue new contracts, because they'll get their kickback. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is an issue that we must call out and call it the way it is. Indeed, a sad affair. When you see that new contracts are being issued every financial year for the same services, for the same work being done, and the previous ones are not honored, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Miraj, kindly go take your call out of the chamber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would urge my fellow senators, let's get into dialogue with our governors. Let's sit down with the county assemblies. Let's sit down with the county executives so that we can save the Kenyans who are being auctioned, who are dying from depression, who are being, Mr. Speaker, who are being auctioned so that we can save the situation. This can only be done through concerted effort and us putting mechanisms in place and measures in place so that there is no new commitment, no new procurement is done before the pending bills are settled. Failure to do this, Mr. Speaker, sir, we will not only ruin the companies, but we will also see a lot of people losing their property because, Mr. Speaker, most contractors, most suppliers, they resort to borrowing money from the banks and servicing the loans. It is known to everybody, Mr. Speaker, that loans and credit facilities in this country are very, very expensive. A couple of times of rolling over, you end up losing all the profit that you made in a project. Now, Mr. Speaker, it is left to us as senators to come up with mechanisms to ensure that those counties that are owing Kenyans billions of shillings, that we make them pay them first. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would suggest that there is a mechanism, because the suppliers are known, the contractors are known, there is a mechanism that can be put in place through the IFMIS system to ensure that money that is being allocated to the county government, even before it's allocated, all the pending bills have been settled. Mr. Speaker, the law of Kenya is very clear. Pending bill should be the first charge before a commitment is made. And has been said by a senator here in this floor. We know that many governors end up coming up with supplementary budgets so that they do not have to go through the public participation services. Mr. Speaker, sir, we know as senator, our work being oversight, we have the mandate and we have the power to ensure that county governments do honor the pending bills. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we do not do this, history will judge us very harshly. We'll be accused of not being able to protect Kenyans. We'll be accused of not standing up for Kenyans. And most important, Mr. Speaker, sir, we will be accused for overseeing the death of many small and medium enterprises. As I sit down, Mr. Speaker, sir, my challenge to my fellow senators, it is time that we seek dialogue with our governors, irregardless of that we belong in the same political divide, irregardless of that we follow the same political ideology. We sit down for the sake of Kenyans, for the sake of Kenyan suppliers, and for the sake of Kenyan contractors. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will seek to be brief but precise. As has been said by my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, there is no question as to how governors and county governments should treat pending bills if the pending bills arise in the first place. Mr. Speaker, I take the position that actually pending bills or the existence of pending bills in any county is a very loud testimony of corruption, of incompetence, and of blatant disrespect to the Constitution and ordinary legislation. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because we all know that before a chief officer in any county government signs a contract to issue any contract to any contractor, to any supplier, they must do two things, Mr. Speaker. One, they must confirm in writing that the funds for that project are available. And secondly, they must ring-fence that fund so that when works are completed, then the contractors are paid. So, Mr. Speaker, the issue of pending bills running into hundreds of millions should never arise in the first place. And when it does, Mr. Speaker, then the law is clear that the payment of any pending bill becomes the first charge on the county revenue fund. Mr. Speaker, you began in the morning by cautioning us, and we take the caution, that we should not degenerate into a house of lamentation. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge my colleagues, guided by your directive, and on the strength of this motion, that after the debate on this motion, then we take and make a resolution that will have far-reaching consequences to governors and county governments who are accumulating pending bills. Mr. Speaker, it is a shame. In fact, I've just consulted Senator Sifuna. It is actually a shame that the city county of Nairobi, the seat of power of the national executive, the seat of power of the national parliament, Mr. Speaker, the seat of power of all executive offices, national executive offices, has accumulated pending bills amounting to 107 billion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, the annual equitable share to the county of Nairobi is 20 billion. So what these executives in the county executive of Nairobi have done is that they have accumulated pending bills 5 times their annual equitable share through the Division of Revenue Bill. Mr. Speaker, as I said, if we are to be seen to be serious, and we must be seen to be serious, then we cannot just debate this motion and go home. No, Mr. Speaker. We must come up with a resolution on how to deal with this kind of shame. Mr. Speaker, that route that county governors think they are very clever to use all the time through supplementary budgets, to tinker with budgets and do things that are not captured by the public. Mr. Speaker, I want to take the floor of the Senate and challenge the honorable members of county assemblies across this country, in the 47 counties, to ensure, because this is a matter of primary oversight, to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that every supplementary budget is taken through the entire process of budget making, and that there is public participation on any supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker. This way, Mr. Speaker, we shall be able to at least minimize the shoddy deals that are being cut through supplementary budgets. Mr. Speaker, we have obligations. County governments have obligations. National government has obligations to banks and to financial institutions. That's why, Mr. Speaker, when financial instruments fall due, everything else stops. To make sure that we honor our obligations to international banks and financial institutions. Why is it that when we have loans that we have to pay to institutions outside this country, we are willing to even starve ourselves to pay those bills? But when it comes to our own local contractors, our own local suppliers, Mr. Speaker, we are willing to tell them to wait for 5 years, for 6 years, for 10 years. We are killing businesses, we are killing enterprise, we are killing our own people, Mr. Speaker. As a house that is mandated by the law and the Constitution to defend devolution and protect the interests of counties and county governments, Mr. Speaker, this matter of pending bills is a matter that, as I said, we cannot just debate. Senator Alwal, we just can't debate this matter. This is a matter that needs a strong resolution, and we follow up and follow through to ensure that the resolution of this House on this matter of pending bills is implemented. Mr. Speaker, with those submissions, I rest my case.
Senator Bone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm truly impressed by the industry of the Senator of Narok. If the recommendations that he has proposed in this motion could be approved by this House, it would be a profound statement on the way forward to solve the problem of pending bills. Taking over from where the Senator of Kitui has left, how can we say that this House serves to protect counties and county governments when we have allowed the county of Nairobi to owe people who have actually delivered goods and services a whopping 107 billion shillings? We are failing, Mr. Speaker. And when the governor is invited to come before the House, he shows us the middle finger. I have chaired one such a meeting where we were forced to fine him 500,000 shillings. And in another meeting chaired by the Senator of Kiambu, again, a similar punishment was dished out to him. Mr. Speaker, this will require that we take this initiative by the Senator of Narok further so that we can achieve what America achieved soon after the First World War. Soon after the First World War, Mr. Speaker, America improved its infrastructure by encouraging local entrepreneurs. They blocked out companies from Europe from coming to do business in the US, and in the process, the monies that were used, borrowed and otherwise, by local entrepreneurs in the United States of America, opened up the economy of America to date. America is the biggest economy in the world. If we are going to read from that, Mr. Speaker, we are therefore saying, if we push counties to pay entrepreneurs, we will open up the economies of all our 47 counties, especially if we also add a rider that contracts must be given to local people in a county unless the expertise for doing a particular project does not exist within that particular county, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it reminds me, the day before yesterday, on 22nd of April, on Monday, in Kakamega, thanks for the responsibility this House gave me, I carried out an oversight function at the Kakamega Golf Hotel, where I invited all creditors to the county government of Kakamega, to whom pending bills are due, to come so that we could workshop together. And allies, Mr. Speaker, we invited the county assembly We invited the county executive. They did not come. The documents we were using, Mr. Speaker, in that meeting were submitted by the governor of Kakamega to the Finance and Budget Committee. So we had wanted these creditors to come and verify those lists, Mr. Speaker, and validate. The governor saw no sense in coming. Instead, he went and peddled influence at the police station, and the police had the audacity to come and storm the hotel so as to disperse us, Mr. Speaker. It was a very low moment for this House. A very low moment. I have decided that I'll keep the course and allow the people of Kakamega to make their own decision about this. Mr. Speaker, one of the companies presented documents in that great meeting where the old man, he's in his 80s, he's one of the most successful business people in Kakamega, he's owed 250 million shillings. And that does not bother the governor. Mr. Speaker, the recommendation in this motion where the Senator of Narok is putting, for example, where has it gone? Yes, here it is, Mr. Speaker, where the Senator of Narok is attempting to say, if this particular amount of money is owed, let it be cleared with this financial year. He's starting a conversation. And I want to challenge myself, challenge the Finance and Budget Committee, and challenge the entire House, that let us carry this conversation further so that we help all the counties of Kenya. In Nairobi, therefore, it means if people were to wait for all the 20 billion that we give Nairobi to be given out to them, some companies will be paid 5 years later. We are failing. I had a sitting with the control of budget in our office over this. And she told me, you guys, help us. Mr. Speaker, the tragedy of this problem is that if you go to the countryside, many, many projects have stalled because contractors cannot continue. You come to Kakamega, our first governor started Buhongo Stadium. It has stalled, pending bills. Teaching and referral hospital, it has stalled, pending bills. Hayaga Market, Shinyalu Market, Ekolomani Market, they have stalled because of pending bills. The Hayaga, Shinyalu, Chepsonoi Road, it has stalled because of pending bills. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, when we raise these issues, governors are quick to run and say, they want my seat. Who told governors that they have seats? Those seats belong to the people of those respective counties, and they have the choice to renew their contract or throw them out so that more competent people can take over after a cycle of 5 years. Mr. Speaker, I hear you. Amen. Mr. Speaker, if we are not firm as Parliament, we'll either throw our country into instability, like what is happening in West Africa. The outdated way of change of government is now back in Africa. We are now seeing coup d'etats because the militaries are waiting to see the institution of Parliament ensure that constitutions are working, and when they give up, they use unconstitutional means. How can we be a country, Mr. Speaker, sir, with due respect to myself and the government that I love and I serve. How can we be a country where we see nothing wrong with seeing doctors carrying twigs and leaves in streets when the same doctors are supposed to be in hospital treating people? How can we be a country, Mr. Speaker, where business people make presentations formal that they were forced to deliver fertilizer, Mr. Speaker, in a conduit that has resulted in Kenyans being sold fake fertilizer? How can we see nothing wrong with it? And we are happy that the Minister of Agriculture is today sitting in office, sitting pretty, when he is responsible for the mess of the sale of counterfeit fertilizer. If the Lord Almighty can speak to CS Linturi should resign at the end of my speech. He's not fit to be a Minister of Agriculture. How would you sell fake fertilizer to the same people who voted for you? Even if we want to get rich quickly, then let us work a little bit hard. You cannot get rich simply by mixing donkey stool.
What is the point of order, Senator Kathuri?
Honorable Speaker, you know, we must be very responsible sometimes when even prosecuting our debates. I want to know whether Senator Karware has that evidence in incriminating the CS Agriculture, because it's an investigation which is ongoing, Honorable Speaker, and also where he sits, he does not sell fertilizer directly or supply to the people of Kenya. So, Mr. Speaker, because the CS cannot be able to appear to be in this floor, the Senator Mbone should not use the privilege that he has just to soil, to malign, to soil names of other Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. And if he has evidence, he should table to you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Bone, you either
Mr. Speaker,
substantiate or withdraw that particular statement.
Mr. Speaker, it was Dr. Martin Luther King who said that if you are accused of breaking the law, when the law you are accused to be breaking is a bad law, then that is the highest respect of the law. Yes, the Deputy Speaker is right. I'm out of order. But the law that makes what I'm doing to be out of order is a bad law, and therefore my defying it is the greatest respect of law. I therefore withdraw those remarks, Mr. Speaker. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, withdraw those remarks. And I tell the Deputy Speaker, it's on the way, it's coming. The Senate Agriculture Committee is seized of this matter. In the National Assembly is seized of this matter. In fact, this weekend they are in Kakamega. They are on the case. The report will come and I'll be vindicated. Mr. Speaker, I say these things because, forget about the minister. I say these things because if you go to a place like Kandui in Bungoma, where Senator Edwin Sifuna comes from, there is this woman who has got 1 acre of land, and she's a mamamboga. For her to raise 2,500 out of selling vegetables, enough to buy fertilizer to plant that 1 acre, is very tight. So when she succeeds, and then we should change them through what we call in Kiluya mafwenyi, Mr. Speaker, is corruption. Mr. Speaker, it's very unfortunate. I hope in the fullness of time that we will serve the people of Kenya. It's a privilege for all of us, wherever we are, elected. It doesn't matter which office, once you are elected. It's a privilege for you to be there because those people had an option to elect the man or woman you defeated. Tell me who, including the president, was elected and opposed in this country. Mr. Speaker, I support this initiative by Senator Latama. Thank you very much.
Senator Haji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise in support of the motion by Senator Olekina. And I think it's a good motion, Mr. Speaker. And it is also important and crucial to acknowledge the adverse effects of the accumulated pending bills. Mr. Speaker, it has led to the closure of businesses. It has led to mental stress to some of the individuals who've done business with county governments. But also, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is also equally important to recognize the diligent efforts of county governments in addressing the issues within their county. Mr. Speaker, sir, this motion gives me an opportunity to vilify governors from the counties of Northeastern as far as the issue of paying pending bills is concerned. Mr. Speaker, sir, as per the report of the Office of the Controller of Budget, the County Government's Budget Implementation Review report that the senator who moved this motion was referring to, it is very evident that Wajir County, by the end of the financial year of December 2022, had accumulated a pending bill of 5.4 billion from the previous government. Mr. Speaker, sir, as per the report, the financials closing December 2023, Wajir County has taken their pending bills down from 5.4 billion to 1.6 billion. That is a huge, huge difference. And it is also important that as we, as a Senate, we are always known to be bashing the county the governors. It is also important that we also praise them from time to time. Such an example is a commendable example, and it is what we want of governors, of all governors, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my county as well has done a good job in paying their pending bills. Garissa County, at the end of 2022, December 2022, had a pending bill of 1.3 billion. As per the report, at the end of December 2023, Garissa County stands with a pending bill of 600 million, which means that the governor has paid half of the pending bills that he found in that county when he got into. You know, it is good because we've heard here from senators that the accumulated pending bills of different counties has had adverse effects of the people and businesses in those counties. So when they do good, we have to praise them. And when they do bad, we also have to be harsh and tough and bash them and be able to give them feedback that will be able to change them. And if they don't change, then the people of those counties should change. Mr. Speaker, as far as this motion is concerned, I support it, but I would also want the senator who's moving this motion to amend some of the wordings of the motion so that we don't put all the governors in one basket and give this impression that county governors never do anything good. As you can see from the examples I've given of Wajir County and Garissa County, these governors are governors who are serving a second term, but have come in after an election of being out for 5 years and have found an exploded pending bill, but have actually done something about it and reduced the amounts. Mr. Speaker, sir, this motion, as far as I'm concerned, should be very harsh on the county governments that have not done anything since they came to office in reducing the amounts of the pending bills. Examples of Nairobi County, Kiambu County, and I'm sure other counties as Busia the mover of the motion should be able to cluster the notorious counties so that they can be affected by this motion. And Mr. Speaker, if the mover is agreeable in making some of the amendments, then I will fully support this motion. And I want to thank him for coming up with a very good motion that will assist the county governments that are suffering from pending bills. But also it's important that we give positive feedback to the governors who are doing a good job. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, actually, it's actually a very unfortunate situation today that this very house that is supposed to oversight the counties we have failed the people of Kenyans because of the Benny bills actually was increasing by the years. And I want to correct my friend and my neighbor, Haji. The Wajir bill is actually, Benny bill is 5.5 billion. But what is shown in the COP is the verified amount of money, which is 1.6. Therefore, I want to put the record, and I said the bill of Wajir Bendy bill stands 5.5 billion. Honorable Speaker, this country has all the institutions that oversight how expenses have been done. Budgets have been made, appropriated, it comes to the Parliament, it's appropriated, it goes to assemblies, it's appropriated, and there is no cause and there is no reason for us to have Benny bills. Because all this money has already been accounted for, been given to respective counties. If the county is given 3 billion shillings or 10 billion shillings, then they must be able to live within the budget. But however, the incidents where money delays, in any case, according to the BVM Act, all monies that are pending, the first charge of every financial year must be paid. So what is happening is that actually it's negligence on the side of, on the side of the governors. Every governor comes and they make their own commitment, excluding, and then they keep the previous bills aside, which is actually not acceptable in this country. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is this country, we have the anti-corruption, many institutions of oversight. We have the DCIs, we have the Parliament, we have, so many institutions are in place. But unfortunately, Kenyans are suffering. One thing, Honorable Speaker, people are not able to take even their children to school because they have spent the money. They were given a contract, they applied for it, they underwent all the process, they paid their own money. So, the contractor, the supplier, the hardware persons, the Shangarao guys, the guys who supply the cement, all these people now are stranded. And therefore, there's a lot of huge bills that is now being kept. And one thing is actually, we want to ask this House to help and work with the COB so that at least this money must be paid to the public, the people who have got benefits. Otherwise, as it is, there are people who have gone to depression, there are people who have gone crazy, There are people who have got hungry. There are people who have, the schools, kids have gone to, are not going to school. And it is a disaster. It's not actually, that something that we can be able to say, there's a bending bill. There is no justification for bending bills. Honorable Speaker, in my place, county, we had a sitting with the governor, we had a sitting with all the suppliers and the contractors, and there was actually a model that we were able to pay the money. However, that does not happen because it says the budget is limited, but we are still trying to negotiate with the suppliers. At least we agree on how best we can be able to pay the money. But one thing we have discovered is, and a blunder has been done by the previous regime, that a lot of contracts that have been given out, or a lot of claims been made, cannot be verified. There are no documentations. There are no, some of them missing, even fictitious. So it becomes also a difficult issue for us to solve this problem. Therefore, I think what we'll do, as chair of the committee, of this committee, of the devolution committee, actually I'm ashamed. Every time I go to a county, I'm being told. The traders run to me and say, the Senate is not working. The Senate is not giving us the support. So it is a high time this Senate must wake up and support the public so that people can get their money. And what I'll say is, let's stop all the monies for the counties until the benefits are paid. Otherwise, as it is, people are running bankrupt. The country is, people are being robbed. Honorable Speaker, if anti-corruption has failed, or they are overwhelmed because of the job they are doing, then we can use other institutions like DCIs to take over these things and at least come up with the criminals who are stealing the public money. Because so far, we have only seen one governor that has been taken to court and they have been charged. And the money is being actually looted on a daily basis. There's Auditor General every time he's giving a report. The Auditor Generals are saying this is actually inappropriate. This money has not been accounted for, but no action has been taken. So I think it's now the owners of this house that since we are responsible for the counties and the oversight, the house, this house must wake up and we must support the institutions that are doing the oversight, like the anti-corruption and the DCIs and everybody, so that this menace of anti-corruption should be stopped. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to support.
Thank you, Senator Abbas. Next is Deputy Minority Whip, Senator Sifuna. Senator Sifuna seems not to be aware of his title because...
Mr. Speaker, before you get to the end of that statement, there is no way of me knowing you're talking about me when you start by deputy minority. It could be leader, it could be whip. So until I heard the last word in your statement, I didn't know that you were speaking about me. But thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, Mr. Speaker, I am speaking to this House on a very difficult day for the people of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, many of our people are marooned in their homes. I have seen videos and photos of people on rooftops. Some homes have been swept away. Roads have been swept away. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, footbridges in places like Kamkunji and those connecting Kamkunji to Makadara and Embakasi West, all of them have been swept away, Mr. Speaker, because of the rains that are going on. Mr. Speaker, we have a humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in Mathare Valley, and especially in Hospital Ward and Utalii wards. And at this particular point in time, Mr. Speaker, we want to acknowledge that the county government of Nairobi, for all its efforts, is overwhelmed, and we would want to be asking and urging the national government and all the national emergency services to be mobilized in order to save lives in many areas of the city. Mr. Speaker, there is a connection between what is happening now and the motion that is before this House on pending bills. One of the things that breaks my heart, Mr. Speaker, that every time we discuss problems in counties, Nairobi is always at the top of that list in terms of being the worst. Mr. Speaker, you will remember that just a few weeks ago, we were discussing the question of pending remittances to pension funds, including LAP Fund and LAP Trust. And 3/4 of the money, I think it was about 48 out of the 60+ billion shillings that was owed to the pension funds. Nairobi had the bulk of those unremitted funds. Mr. Speaker, just recently, there was a report on the number of teenage pregnancies across the country. And it didn't surprise me that, again, we were number 1 on that list. So anytime there is a problem across the country, any ranking, we are always at the top of the worst possible list, Mr. Speaker. And it is not another surprise that when we're discussing pending bills, out of the 160 billion that is owed by all the 47 counties, Nairobi has 107 billion out of that. Mr. Speaker, therefore, this motion, I want to thank the Senator for Narok, because this is a motion that is meant to come and save the people of Nairobi. If you look at, Mr. Speaker, the breakdown of that amount of 107, there is the report of the Auditor General for the year ending June 2023. And Mr. Speaker, you can see that there is an analysis of the pending bills, the 107 billion shillings that we are speaking about. It is Annexure 2 of the Auditor General's report. Mr. Speaker, first, there is a lot that is made about the 20 billion shillings that is owed to lawyers alone in Nairobi. And whereas many things have been said about it, we would want there to be a process where all these bills are actually taken through an audit process. There was an attempt by the government of Governor Sakaja. When they came in, they brought in a task force to look at whether indeed those bills are payable. I know that it was chaired by Senior Counsel Kamotho Waiganjo, but Mr. Speaker, there was an intervention from the High Court sitting in Kitale that declared all those processes to be extra legal, so that most of these committees were being disbanded without ever handing in their final reports to tell us whether those bills are payable or not. I want to speak, Mr. Speaker, as a senator of Nairobi, that in fact, sometimes the lawyers are lumped all together, and many claim that, many of those legal bills are fictitious. But there is a process in the Office of the Auditor General to ascertain what is payable and what is not payable. There are many good young lawyers who have done work for the county government of Nairobi, but who are not being paid, Mr. Speaker, at the expense of a few rogue lawyers, and especially senior people in the profession, who, Mr. Speaker, will raise ridiculous fee notes for work that is not commensurate to that payment. So that, Mr. Speaker, we need to isolate those cases where we believe work was genuinely done, people are genuinely required to be paid, and those payments to be made. Mr. Speaker, in that same Auditor General's report, we have a list of stalled construction projects or development projects in the county of Nairobi. And Mr. Speaker, you will see, we have over 12 stalled health projects, construction of health facilities at all levels of the healthcare system, Mr. Speaker. And it amounts to almost 1.4 billion shillings, pending bills. And I've given the example on this floor of the construction works that have stalled at our level 5 hospitals. If you go to Mbagathi, Mr. Speaker, there is a stalled construction project. The contractor abandoned site because of non-payment of bills amounting to over 40 billion shillings. If you go to Mama Lucy Hospital, the story is the same. If you go to Mutuini Hospital in Dagoretti South, the story is the same, Mr. Speaker. And if you go to Pumwani Hospital, the premier facility for delivery of children in this country, the situation is the same. I heard the CS for Health yesterday saying that the monies that were owed by national government to these facilities under Linda Mama program and also under NHIF had been paid. She told us to check the accounts today. As of yesterday, when she finished speaking, I spoke to the CEOs of these facilities, Majority Leader, that money has not been seen. I am also going to check with them today, yes, to see that these amounts have been paid, because we need these projects to be completed. Mr. Speaker, one of the conversations that has been going on with the current flooding in the country and in Nairobi in particular is the question of garbage, Mr. Speaker. We have a big problem where garbage has become a very serious menace, Mr. Speaker, and it is contributing to the situation that we are seeing with flooding, because most of this garbage that remains uncollected in many areas ends up in our drainages, and then you see people's homes flooding. I will give you the example, Mr. Speaker. We had a collection center that was opened at Umoja Inako. Mr. Speaker, that garbage was not meant to stay there at Inako. It was supposed to be collected from Inako and taken to Dandora dumping site. Since September of last year, because the contractors have abandoned their work for non-payment, Mr. Speaker, the garbage at Inako in Umoja has now reached the power lines. That is how high up it has been stacked. We have illegal dumping sites at places like Likoni Road, Mr. Speaker. And if you speak to the business people who operate in that area behind Kartasi Brands, there is a place on Enterprise Road where an illegal dumping site was opened there. Mr. Speaker, all of those businesses from Enterprise Road coming all the way up to Road C, to Road B, all of those places right now as we speak are flooded. People are counting very serious losses because of non-collection of garbage and dumping of soil on the riverbed in that particular area of the Ngong River. Mr. Speaker, I had a conversation one time. One young contractor came to my office. He had been contracted to collect garbage. That gentleman, after receiving that contract, went to suppliers of machinery, the backhoe loaders and the trucks, and got a loan to finance that particular project, thinking that he would be making some money and be able to pay for those equipment. Mr. Speaker, by the time this guy is seeing payment, first of all, he had to abandon work. His machines were repossessed by the financiers. They were auctioned, and of course they were auctioned at a lesser value than he bought them. And the difference between the value that he took and what they fetched in the market at the auction was he was being asked to pay that amount. And yet, Mr. Speaker, when you go to the county governments for this payment, we have this phenomenon where if you don't know somebody to push for you payments through the county government, nothing is going to be done. Mr. Speaker, when you go to have that conversation, this young man was in tears. You go to have a conversation and you've had allegations of people saying you cannot be paid a pending bill in these county governments if you do not agree to part with 50% of the payment. These are not stories, Mr. Speaker. This is the life of many of the contractors that are in our country, and in our county in particular, Mr. Speaker. So the motion that has been brought by the Senator for Narok, I actually believe is a timely motion, and I would go a step further because some of the recommendations that he has made here. Number one, that the Senate recommends that all county governments pay verified pending bills amounting to less than Kenya shillings 1 billion by the end of this financial year, and those above 1 billion by the end of the financial year 2024-2025. When I hear my counterpart from Nyeri saying they have no pending bills, when I hear our friends in Baringo want to impeach their governor because of pending bills of 115 million, I just wonder which world is this that Nairobi cannot live in, that we can also be at zero net pending bills, Mr. Speaker. So I support the recommendation. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I have been an advocate of ring-fencing money for pending bills, as you have heard. At the rate we are going, Mr. Speaker, if Nairobi gets 20 billion shillings every year in equitable revenue, it will take us 5 years. If we are doing nothing but paying pending bills, it will take us 5 years, 5 years allocation to get to 100 billion shillings in order for us to clear our pending bills. So, Mr. Speaker, I do agree with the recommendation here that the county governments must prioritize payment of pending bills. If those bills were being paid, the garbage collectors would be working. Mr. Speaker, I forgot to tell you that if you look at the report of the Auditor General of the year ending June 2023, the number of stalled road projects, these are construction projects that include roads and ECDE, are over 50 projects, Mr. Speaker. And some of them include works that would have, that would have made the situation with flooding a bit more better than it is right now. Mr. Speaker, we have stalled projects with sports facilities as well, amounting to 64 million shillings, pending bills owed to people who are supposed to be completing construction of sports stadia in Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I want to agree with the proposal here that county governments must prioritize payment of pending bills as a first charge on the county revenue fund. But what we don't understand is why is this not being done even as it is, because that is the law. The law is that we pay our debts first before we do anything else. Why is the control of budget allowing county governments to receive money, to continually receive money, when we know it is not going to the payment of these pending bills as a first charge on the county revenue fund as provided for in the law? Mr. Speaker, I want to make another proposal here. And this is something that I'm sure Senator Ledama agrees with. There is actually no point for any county government to begin construction or new projects when we have stalled projects that have not been completed. Mr. Speaker, if you go to Joseph Kang'ethe grounds in Woodley, there is a social hall that was begun by Governor Kidero in 2013. Up to today, between 2013 and now, Mr. Speaker, even though we have had subsequent county governments, no county government has seen it fit to allocate any resources for the completion of that social hall at Joseph Kang'ethe Woodley grounds. So why would a governor, upon election, Mr. Speaker, not prioritize completion of projects, and then you come up with new projects that are going to, again, get us into this rut that we are in? So, for instance, I have advised my county governor that, yes, he had this plan to subdivide Nairobi into 4 boroughs so that there can be better management of the city. But you don't need to build new borough offices. That is the one thing that I have told him, and I am sure he understands, that in fact, when we have ward offices for the counties, there is no need for us to build any new offices for the county government, yet we have stalled projects in the health sector and other critical sectors, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, there is a proposal here that county governments shall only pay pending bills contained in their respective procurement plans pursuant to Regulation 52 and 3 of the Public Finance Management County Government Regulations. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the most abused areas, that county governments will request for funds. They will give lists to the control of budget saying these are the projects or the bills we are going to pay. And when the money is released to them, Mr. Speaker, what do? They do that, what the Senator for Taita Taveta was alluding to, called voiding of transactions, so that they can then preferentially pay those who they have struck deals with in order that they can receive something as kickbacks. Mr. Speaker, therefore, I am a strong supporter. In fact, if today you tell me that we should ring fence all the money that comes to Nairobi County government, we start paying off suppliers and contractors, people who are working on our drainages, I don't think anybody in Nairobi would object if we were going to prioritize payment of the people who collect our garbage. I don't think anybody in Nairobi would complain if we said we are going to stop everything else, we are going to focus on this service delivery. Mr. Speaker, there is a meeting that had been called by the Office of the Deputy President for today to discuss this thing of the Nairobi rivers. Of course, for me, because I believe in the relationship between the national government and the county governments being kosher, I thought that it was a misplaced forum for us to discuss matters that are completely devolved. Mr. Speaker, we have thoughts on how we can improve Nairobi. Those of you who have traveled across the world, you see in places like Europe, their rivers are paved at the
Okay, next is Senator Chute Mohamed.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Ningetaka kumshukuru Senator wa Narok, Senator Olekina kwa kuleta maono na shida ambayo counties wako nayo kwa pesa ambaye haijalipwa kwa muda mrefu sana. Mheshimiwa Spika, kawaida county serikali ya county na serikali kuu bado ni serikali ambayo imechaguliwa na raia ya nchi hii. Na pesa ambaye wanatumia ni pesa ambayo imetolewa kama ushuru na raia ya nchi. Pesa ya county sio pesa ambaye haina hesabu yake, iko na hesabu yake, na pesa ambaye inataka kujulikana imefanya kazi gani. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kuna kitu inaitwa public participation. Kabla miradi haija pitishwa katika bunge ya county, lazima wananchi waseme wanataka hiyo miradi ifanywe, miradi ni gani na itafanywa wapi. Baada ya wananchi kuamua wanataka miradi gani ifanywe, sasa hapo ndio sasa wanaanza kupanga mpango ya kuanza mchoro, kama ni mjengo, kama ni barabara. Alafu hiyo mchoro inawekewa bei yake ambayo inaitwa quantity surveying. Baada ya hiyo, baada ya kujulikana gharama ya ujenzi hiyo ni pesa ngapi, inapelekwa katika bunge ya county ambayo itashughulikiwa vilivyo na itapitizwa baadaye kama mpango ambaye imetoka kwa wananchi ya kaunti hiyo. Baada ya hiyo, mambo ya kazi vile itafanyika inatangazwa katika magazeti. Wale contractors ambaye wanataka kufanya hiyo kazi wanajaza bei yao, inapitizwa na wale watu wanashughulika na procurement ya hiyo mpango. Mheshimiwa Speaker, hakuna kitu yoyote itafanyika katika nchi hii ama hata county ambayo imeenda kupita katika bunge ya kitaifa ama bunge ya county ambayo wakati budget imepangwa inajulikana hiyo budget inapangiwa mradi gani. Mheshimiwa Speaker, shida ambayo iko ndani ya county baada ya budget kupitizwa, baada ya project kujulikana ni gani, baada ya muda kidogo unasikia shida imetokezea, hiyo pesa inakuwa wakati contractor amefanya kazi, akiandika certificate yake inaenda kwa ofisi ya controller ya budget. Ile contractor ambayo amepeleka certificate yake inapelekwa kwa ofisi ya controller of budget. Ikifika huko pesa ikilipwa, Mheshimiwa Speaker, hiyo pesa haiendi kwa hiyo contractor ambayo amepeleka certificate yake. Hiyo pesa imebadilishwa, ikitoka kwa COB, controller ya budget, imebadilishwa imelipwa contractor mwingine. Contractor ambayo certificate yake imefika huko, Mheshimiwa Speaker, anafikiria pesa yake haijalipwa, bado anakaa anaongojea pesa ilipwe. Kumbe yeye hajajua pesa yake imelipiwa katika ofisi ya controller ya budget. Imelipwa, account number iko huko, jina ya kampuni iko huko, na mwenye kuhakikisha ametayarisha hiyo certificate katika county amesign, jina yake na signature yake iko huko. Mheshimiwa Speaker, njia moja ile inaleta shida sana kwa counties na contractors na suppliers kuangamia ni pesa zao inakuwa diverted, inabadilishwa kutoka hiyo kampuni yao inalipwa kampuni nyingine. Mheshimiwa Speaker, niko na ushahidi kutoka ofisi ya controller ya budget kwamba kuna kampuni ndani ya kaunti ya Marsabit, kaunti ambayo mimi nasimamia kama senator. Kuna contractors wamelipa na suppliers wamelipwa kulingana na ofisi ya controller ya budget. Nimepatiwa hiyo documents kutoka ofisi hiyo. Wale contractor wangefaa kulipwa, nilipowauliza walisema hawajapata hiyo pesa. Mheshimiwa Speaker, njia moja ya contractors na suppliers kukosa pesa yao ni hiyo. Njia nyingine contractors na suppliers wanakosa pesa yao ama inacheleweshwa ni hii kitu inaitwa on source revenue, ile pesa ambaye inafaa, ushuru ambaye inafaa kuchukuliwa katika county. Wakati budget inapangwa, wanaongeza kiwango ambaye wangefaa kuokota iwe zaidi. Hiyo pia inafanya pesa ya county suppliers wakose. Mheshimiwa Speaker, shida ya tatu, Mheshimiwa Speaker, wakati budget imepitishwa, public participation imefanywa, budget ikipitishwa, kuna kitu ile inasumbua sana, inaitwa supplementary budget. Mheshimiwa Speaker, county yangu kama ya Marsabit, baada ya budget kupitizwa, wanakaa ile maendeleo ingefanywa, ile ujenzi ya barabara, ya nyumba, ya shule, ya hospitali ingefanywa, ilikuwa kwa budget, inaenda kubadilishwa kutoka budget ile ilikuwa imepangiwa, wanatengeneza supplementary budget, pesa zote inatolewa kwa hiyo maendeleo, inapelekwa kwa kitu inaitwa emergency relief supplies. Mheshimiwa Speaker, County kama ya Marsabit, pesa ya maendeleo imebadilishwa katika supplementary budget, ikapelekwa kwa chakula, saa zingine inakuwa milioni 600, 700 mpaka milioni 800. Mheshimiwa Speaker, sababu hiyo pesa inabadilishwa kutoka development fund inapelekwa kwa relief supplies ni kwa sababu ukipeleka kwa relief supplies hakuna ile tenda ya kawaida inafanywa, kwa sababu inaitwa emergency supplies procurement system, njia ambayo inafanya ofisi ya governor kuitisha contractors bila kupitia ile njia ya tenda ya kawaida. Mheshimiwa Speaker, sisi tunaambiwa senators ni watu ambao wangetakikana wajaribu kusaidia devolution katika nchi hii. Mheshimiwa Speaker, devolution ni lazima ikuje na maendeleo. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ukiangalia kaunti zingine, siwezi kutaja majina hapa, maendeleo yao ya ujenzi, development yao iko 6% peke yake. Ninakaa katika komiti ya devolution na nimeshtuka sana, kuna counties ambayo inayo 6% peke yake, 6% peke yake. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kama unatumia 94% kufanyisha kazi 6%, kweli devolution iko kufanya kazi. Naona kama hatufanyi kazi ya devolution vizuri. Nataka kushukuru sana tena Senator wa Narok kuleta hii hoja. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ukiangalia county ya Waislamu ambaye governors ni Waislamu, wanasema wanaendanga haji, wanaenda umra, wanasali mara 5 kwa siku, wanalipa sadaka, wanalipa zaka. Ukiangalia county yao ndio county ambayo inarudisha devolution nyuma, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Kwa sababu county iko na corruption kubwa ni hizo makaunti, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Kwa sababu wanadai county yao ni county ambaye ni arid, ambaye sehemu ambayo haina mvua ya kutosha. Wanajaribu kuweka pesa ya kujenga naye county, wanarudisha kukula naye chakula. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ukienda
samani kidogo Senator Chute, kuna hoja ya nidhamu kutoka kwa Senator Wasingishu.
Mheshimiwa Speaker, kulingana na kanuni za bunge 105, je, Senator wa Marsabit anaweza kuwa na stabakati zote kuonyesha kuwa Muislamu ama gavana Muislamu una uhusiano wowote na ufisadi?
Tachute.
Sasa hiyo, Mheshimiwa Speaker, wenzangu kidogo wametereza kidogo. Sijasema iko dini inaonyesha mwingine ni mkora. Kwa hivyo vile mimi nasema ni kwamba wale watu tungeheshimu kama Waislamu, unatoa sadaka, unaenda nini, hiyo ndio nimesema hawa wangefaa kuhakikisha kaunti zao inafanya kazi mzuri. Mheshimiwa Speaker, nikiendelea, devolution inakufa, Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwa sababu ya, Mheshimiwa Speaker, yuko mahali nilienda Manyata fulani, nikaonyeshwa kaburi, nikaambiwa hii mzee amekufa amekufa akidai county. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kuna watu wengi sana wamepoteza maisha yao, sio kwa sababu ya ugonjwa, sio kwa sababu ya shida nyingine, kwa sababu ameenda kuomba pesa kwa bank, ameenda kuomba pesa kwa familia yake, ameenda kuomba pesa kwa marafiki zake, akaenda kufanya kazi ya county. Pesa inakaa miaka 5 haijatoka, Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Speaker, nakubaliana na Senator Olekina. Kama ningeulizwa leo pesa zote ambayo iko pending bills, maendeleo yote isifanywe, kwanza walipe pesa ambayo watu wanadai serikali. Haijalishi serikali ni gani, kama ni ya county ama ni serikali kuu ya serikali ya Kenya. Saa hizi ukipatikana na KRA hujalipa ushuru, unapigwa kitu inaitwa penalty. Sasa serikali inakupiga penalty, raia wakati serikali inakataa kulipa pesa yake, watalipa penalty kutoka wapi? Watauliza nani? Mheshimiwa Speaker, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwangu mahali nimetoka, umaskini ya watu iko hali ya juu. Saa hizi kazi yote ambayo inafanywa ndani ya kaunti ya Marsabit, wale watu wenyeji nyumbani huko hawafanyi kazi hiyo. Watu kutoka nje wanakuja kufanya kazi, saa zingine wanaleta chakula ya relief huko. Ile pesa inabaki huko, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni pesa ambaye ile watu ya kutaramusha hiyo mzigo wanalipwa peke yake. Peke yake. Kama ni milioni 200, ile pesa inabaki huko ni shilingi 10,000 ya kutaramusha hiyo mzigo peke yake. 1,998 milioni 100,998 inarudi hapa Nairobi. Unaona hata pesa hakuna kwa miji, kwa sababu pesa yote imerudi Nairobi. Vile imetumwa Nairobi, imerudi Nairobi. Lakini wale watu maskini kidogo kidogo, milioni 1, milioni 2, wamefanya kazi kwa kaunti, mpaka leo miaka 5, 6 hawajapata pesa yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa hata president yetu akae afikirie kama raia yake nchi zingine ya Europe ama hata Saudi Arabia. Mheshimiwa Spika, wanapanda ngano ndani ya Saudia, serikali inapatia wa pesa msaada. Kama ngano yao ingetoa shilingi 1,000, serikali inapatia wa shilingi 200 ili wauze hiyo nini yao ngano kwa 1,200. Lakini serikali yetu inaiba kutoka raia ya Kenya. Unachukua deni, raia anapatia serikali deni, na serikali hailipi deni. Na serikali nyingine, nchi nyingine inasaidia raia yake, na serikali hii ya Kenya inamaliza raia yake. Mheshimiwa Spika, Senator Ole Kina amefanya kazi mzuri sana, na tunataka kusupport. Ikiwezekana tuweke sheria ya kwamba hakuna development itafanyika katika county ama hata nchi, national government, mpaka wale watu wanalia sahi walipwe pesa yao. Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, nikimalizia. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia counties, kuna watu wanafanya kazi kwa niaba ya governor ya ma-counties. Mheshimiwa Spika, kampuni zingine ikifanya kazi inalipwa pesa, hata wiki moja wamepata pesa yao. Wale raia ya kawaida wanaenda kufikiria wanajaza tenda, wakijaza hiyo tenda wakienda kutafuta pesa yao, hawatapata hiyo pesa hata miaka 10. Mheshimiwa Spika, hizi makampuni ambayo wanafanya kazi, kampuni kubwa kubwa wanafanya kazi ya milioni 200, 300, 400, inatakikana waletwe majina yao mbele ya Senate, wafanyiwe uchunguzi hiyo kazi. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna watu wamefungua account leo, wameregister kampuni leo, kesho yake ameenda kujaza tenda ya county, siku ya 3 amepatiwa kazi ya milioni 200, baada ya wiki 2 amelipwa pesa. Mheshimiwa Spika, na hiyo pesa baada ya wiki 2 nyingine imetoka kwa hiyo account, haijulikani mahali imeenda. Kwa hivyo natakikana hata hawa watu wachunguzwe, hiyo kazi walianza lini, walifanya na kampuni gani, hiyo pesa imeingia account gani, imetoka account hiyo ikaenda account gani.
Next is Senator Ogola Beatrice.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to support the motion by my senior, the Senator of Narok, Senator Ole Kina. And Honorable Speaker, the issue of pending bills is a very thorny issue in this country. Honorable Speaker, if you look at for people who would have copies of the LPOs and LSOs that are given to suppliers or contractors, it is very clear behind them there are regulations that are provided that you will not grant work if you do not have that money in your budget. And so, Honorable Speaker, with those regulations in place, it was intended that works are given when funds are available. It then bothers all of us why we continue to pile pending bills, Honorable Speaker. Just last week or recently, Honorable Speaker, we saw an exchange between a service provider of Nairobi County and the governor of Nairobi County, and we saw an exchange where it was purported that there was a request for some down payment of some bill to be paid. Honorable Speaker, this could be the reason why we have pending bills in counties, because some are not paid because the contractors or people who have done such works are not ready to part with some money. Honorable Speaker, when you come to the issue of pending bills have what we call an aging system. If you go through the auditor's report, there's a mention of aging system payment, and you wonder why the pending bills that were incurred by county governments or even government departments do not respect the aging system that is prescribed for payment of pending bills. Pending bills are also a fast charge in our budgets. So, Honorable Speaker, you wonder why they are not paid. Honorable Speaker, there has been an excuse, a historical excuse, with counties especially, that some of the pending bills are bills that were incurred from the defunct local authorities. Honorable Speaker, I've often referred to this as an excuse because those county governments took over those bills from the defunct local authorities. We have not seen any effort by those counties in paying those bills. So, Honorable Speaker, those bills remain just by design. And Honorable Speaker, the issue of on-source revenue also adds on to the pending bills we have in counties, because on-source revenue is just used by counties to balance their budgets. So at the end of it, we remain with pending bills year in, year out. Honorable Speaker, I would like to say that in my own county, I've seen a number of people distressed, fall sick, some have collapsed, some have died. I have my uncle, Declan Opan, who was buried unceremoniously because he was owed money by the county government of Homa Bay, and he expected payment because his financials were also looking forward for payment. So on a particular day when he was expecting that pay and it did not come, Honorable Speaker, Declan Opang just dropped down and died. And that is the story of so many other people, so many contractors that have been auctioned, a number of contractors that are on their beds just sick, are terminally ill because they have not been able to be paid, and so they are not able to meet their financial obligation. Honorable Speaker, the issue of pending bills result in the withholding of circulation of cash in the economy. Just some times back when counties came into place, the counties were very vibrant when funds had been released. When people had been paid, you could see money circulating in most of our urban centers and rural centers. But now that is a thing of the past. And Honorable Speaker, I support this motion because the pending bills also put pressure on the scarce resources that we have in our counties. Honorable Speaker, because these pending bills, they attract penalties which have to be paid. If they are paid by the counties, it means that there's pressure that is exerted on the resources that we already have. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the last auditor's general's report, there is even a mention of abandoned and incomplete projects all over the country. Honorable Speaker, these were projects that some money has been put in. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this bill, and I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that it is unfortunate that counties were supposed to make our people be vibrant in their businesses, but instead, because of the non-payment of these bills, It has killed a lot of small business people. But Honorable Speaker, we have also had the example of Nyeri as a county by the Senator of Nyeri. I would like to say that our governors and a number of government departments, they need to learn from Nyeri. They need to pick Nyeri as a role model and learn why a number of counties have pending bills and Nyeri does not have pending bills. But, Honorable Speaker, as we talk about the counties, even the national government, if you look at the Auditor General's report, the national government departments also have huge pending bills, led by the Ministry of Roads, the Ministry of Energy, and even the Ministry of Health. And incidentally, even OP as a percentage of pending bills. We want to say that our government departments, our county governments must meet their obligations so that our people are able to thrive and the economy of the counties are able to grow. And Honorable Speaker, as I wind up, I would also like to mention the fact that we are looking forward to MCAs to provide the first primary oversight over some of these worrying trends. But Honorable Speaker, it is also worth noting that some of those MCAs are also contractors in the counties. So as a Senate, as we look on the MCAs to provide oversight, some of them are conflicted. They are contractors in the counties. So, Honorable Speaker, the Senate must stamp its feet, and I want to end by supporting this motion and by saying that let us keep pending bills as a first charge in the budgets and let our governments meet their obligation. I support, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Senators, exactly at midday, we'll be interrupting the debate to usher in the CS for gender and culture so that she can answer the questions as it was earlier communicated. I don't know whether she is allowed. If she is, then you can. Senator Mandago, you want to use 1 minute?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support the motion by Senator of Narok, Senator Ledama Olekina, on the matter of pending bills, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I would want to urge this House that as we pass a resolution to that motion, we instruct the Controller of Budget to ensure that the budgets for the financial year 2024-2025 financial year for all counties take into account pending bills, and that there shall be no funds dispersed to counties until all the pending bills have been paid. Honorable Speaker, the national government has taken a proactive approach and already have a pending bills verification committee. They have set aside resources to make sure that all historical pending bills in the national government are sorted. County governments must consequently also take cue from what national government is doing and ensure that all pending bills are paid. Honorable Speaker, on the matter of diversification of funds.
Let me interrupt you, so you'll have some minutes when we resume the same debate.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes. And so I want to, now we usher in the CS for gender, culture, the arts and heritage. To answer question number 025 from the Senator for Kirinyaga County, Senator James Murango. I was told this has been delegated to Senator Wamatinga. You have the question, Senator Mutinda? But, okay. Proceed and ask, but there is a quick point of order from Senator Chalegei.
Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to standing order Article 125 of the Constitution and Article 125 of the Constitution and Article 153. Mr. Speaker, Under Article 125 on power to call evidence, this House has power to request anybody to appear before this House, Mr. Speaker, as per Article 125. In that article, Mr. Speaker, it points out that this House enjoys the status of the High Court. Mr. Speaker, when you read Article 153 of the Constitution of Kenya, it talks about the decisions of the cabinet that should be in writing, Mr. Speaker, and of course extrapolated. Mr. Speaker, I'm meant to understand that I have never, as a legal practitioner in this House, Mr. Speaker, in this country, and as a lawmaker, I have never gone into a situation where any entity or any person, including the president, can move the High Court to appear at their own convenient time. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware it should have been 11 that the CS, my good sister, CS of gender, Aisha Jumwa, should have appeared. Mr. Speaker, we should reduce this House for just neatness, Mr. Speaker, so that you give...
Chalege, I think you are not in the House when this matter was...
No, I'm aware, Mr. Speaker, and that is where I'm coming to that.
So you should not take us back where we were.
No, I'm not taking you back, Mr. Speaker. I just needed your ruling so that you know this House, Mr. Speaker, anything we make is a precedent, and that is my worry. Just allow me 30 seconds to come home. Mr. Speaker, what I'm just saying is that, is it a precedent that when a cabinet secretary or any other witness would want to appear before the committee or the House, and you have invited them at 10, they can call the committee chair or the speaker and tell them, can I appear at 12? So my concern is the president, because the moment we allow this to slide, and you know it is in the answer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can I conclude? Can I conclude 30 seconds only?
You have already concluded.
So, Mr. Speaker, I needed...
I have you very well, Senator Chalege. I have heard you very well. This matter was well canvassed and the ruling was made by the chair. So let us not waste more time. So I asked Senator Mutinda to ask the question. What is happening, Senator Mutinda? Senator Charege, I don't need any assistance as at now. Maybe on another matter, but not on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And without wasting time, because I think we're behind time, on behalf of the Senator of Kirinyaga County, I will ask the question that he had posed to the Cabinet Secretary. And before that, Mr. Speaker, allow me to really appreciate Madam CS for finding time. I know she's always on a busy schedule, but as long as we are here, we can execute. The first question...
Sorry, let us clean up the process. So, clean out the Honda.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
So, the CS for Gender Culture, welcome to the Senate.
Thank you.
I understand this is your maiden appearance, so feel free. Senators are very good people, so as long as you are here, they were a bit agitated in the morning, but now they are relaxed. So welcome to the Senate, and feel free to answer the issues that the senators have. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as I repeat, on behalf of the Senator of Kirinyaga County, Senator James Murango, to the CS, the question was, are there plans by the government to establish a public library in Kirinyaga County? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary clarify whether budgetary allocations for the same will be made in this financial year 2024-2025? That's the first question.
Both questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The second question, Madam CS, what actions is the government taking to ensure the establishment of public libraries in all counties where there is none?
Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker and honorable senators, from the onset, I convey my deepest apologies for the late appearance before this honorable House due to circumstances beyond my control. My earlier request for deferral of my appearance before you, Mr. Speaker, were based on exigencies of duty on 2 occasions and on medical grounds on another occasion. Mr. Speaker, for each of these requests for deferral, I attach the supporting documents, and that's notwithstanding, I do here wish to respond to the question raised by Senator Mutinda on behalf of the Senator for Kirinyaga, Honorable James Murango. Mr. Speaker, that there are plans by the government to establish a public library in Kirinyaga County, and if so, whether budgetary allocations for the same will be made in the financial year 2024-2025. And the second one, action is being taken by the national government to ensure establishment of public libraries in all counties where there is none. Mr. Speaker, my response is as follows. There are no plans to establish libraries in counties since the function of libraries was devolved to county government as per the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, and in particular, public libraries. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is that for both the 2 questions, both A and B? Yes, Senator Mutinda, do you have any supplementary question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of Senator Murango. Mr. Speaker, I sit in finance budget and I'm the vice chair. And the issue of the libraries are issues that as a committee we've really embarked on. Yes, especially the 33 counties that I have. We have the issue of the 425 million that is still pending to be submitted to these counties. And we have employees and staff that have not received, their remunerations and salaries because of lack of disbursements of these funds. So when Madam CS, you clearly indicate that it is not the function of, or it's not the function in your ministry, then it leaves a lot to be desired. It's not really a fulfilling question from where I sit, and we would request for much more of a detailed answer because it's a bit shallow because the 33 counties that are beneficiaries of the libraries really are keen to await the feedback. And to be more specific, of course, the county of Kirinyaga, where the senator represents, the county of Nairobi also, and among other counties that it's still not so enough, Mr. Speaker, to just summarize in terms of this, it's not its function. We are one government. And then there needs to be a responsibility that your office needs to take so as to ensure these monies reach the 33 counties. And at the same time, even if there are no plans by the government to expand, it's good because as Kenya Kwanza, I know we are honest in terms of saying the factual, yes, so that we don't give false hopes, it's fine. But as far as those 33 are concerned, what is the status of the 425 million?
Madam CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, responding to the question again by Senator Mutinda, my ministry, yes, handed over public libraries to 33 counties. However, there is a need to upgrade the existing services to fit into the envisaged county government status and people's expectations. What my ministry did, since library function is a devolved function, the ministry did submit a proposal to IGRTC for onward submission to the summit for consideration of allocation of a ring-fenced conditional grant to facilitate establishment of libraries in the 14 counties without public libraries. On the disbursement of the 435 million was released to the same counties that these are the 33 counties which we handed over the public libraries to, because it is clear that money follows function. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, my screen here has several senators. Now, because I can see it's the same ranking as the other debate, we end the motion. I don't know whether still you want to, as it is, want to give your supplementary questions. Matilda, you are to get 2 questions, but you are now comfortable with the one you requested. So let us have, I can see Mugatana again. Boy Juma. Is it on this? Maybe kindly then you log out so that I can see exactly who are interested to ask the supplementary questions. Senator Sosi, can you kindly clear the screen? Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think I want to concur with Senator Mutinda that the Cabinet Secretary is not giving this House sufficient information regarding this question. Because, yes, we know that library services is devolved, but we also know that library services, though it's devolved, is one of those functions which have not been fully transferred to the counties. And that the only attempt that was done was to release that 400 million plus conditional grants, but is largely not transferred. And as he rightly say, that money follows functions. So she needs to come to this House and give a comprehensive response to this question. And not just for Kirinyaga, for the other counties as well. Because we are having a scenario where for functions which are devolved, most of them are still, money-wise, they are still being managed at the national level. And then every time cabinet secretaries come here, they hide behind the issue that this is a devolved function. But the money is still held up there. So I think the cabinet secretary who I served with in the National Assembly must tell this House the details around the provision of library services and the monies that the national government is controlling on this, because conditional grants that was given was too little, too late. So I think this House deserves a proper and detailed answer from the Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier, it's true that money follows function, And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that from our ministry or from my ministry, it's true that the monies were transferred to the fullest to all the 33 counties that the libraries were transferred to. So that is the whole truth, Mr. Speaker, that we do not hold any monies for the 33 libraries. The 423 million.
Senator Mandago, Jackson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, libraries is a devolved function. I served in a county that had a library, and the library was devolved to counties. Honorable Speaker, once a function is devolved, if the libraries were not developed in all the counties, and it's the feeling of this House that we should have at least a library in every county, then the only remedy to that, Honorable Speaker, is to ask for conditional allocation for development of those libraries, just the way some counties were given funds to develop county assemblies and also county headquarters. Otherwise, as is, Honorable Speaker, the function is devolved, and I think the CS is just shooting straight to the answer instead of so many sentences and still lying on the same thing. My supplementary question to the Honorable Cabinet Secretary then, if you say that libraries were devolved, how comes then that the only national library in Nairobi in Upper Hill was retained by national government? You should therefore, after this sitting, consequently go and gazette the transfer of that library to Nairobi City County. As for the other libraries, unless we do conditional allocation of grants for development, then the Cabinet Secretary will have nothing else to do. And since also Cabinet Secretaries are not responsible for allocation of resources, we cannot ask her that she's remaining with a lot of money in the ministries as a National Assembly to actually address that matter, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Madam CS. Pick a few more questions, maybe it will save some time. Senator Maruma Jones.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa hii fursa ili kuuliza swali la ziada kwa Mheshimiwa Waziri Asha Jumwa, na kwanza nimpe kongole kwa sababu ni wakati wake wa kwanza kuja katika hili bunge la Seneti, ya kwamba tunakutakia mema katika utendakazi wako dada yetu katika hii wizara yako. Mheshimiwa Spika, nilikuwa na swali kuhusu wafanyikazi wa maktaba, kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, kabla ya maktaba kugatuliwa, kuna pesa zilitoka za kuongezea mishahara wafanyikazi wa maktaba, na hizo pesa hazikutumika kuwapandisha vyeo na kubadilisha mishahara ya hawa wafanyikazi ambao wanafanya kazi katika maktaba. Wale wafanyikazi waligatuliwa wakati wa kugatua maktaba, na ile pesa inasemekana kwamba haikutumika kuwapandisha vyeo wale wafanyikazi. Swali langu Mheshimiwa Spika ni je, na sijui kama huyo mkurugenzi wa maktaba yuko hapo, swali langu ni je, hao wafanyikazi watapata pesa zao? Watapandishwa vyeo? Kwa sababu wengi wao walifanya miaka 10, miaka 15 bila kupandishwa vyeo, na wakati wao wa kupandishwa vyeo ulipofika, maktaba iligatuliwa na hiyo pesa haieleweki pale ilienda. Niko na swali ama statement ambayo niliibua katika hii bunge na bado mpaka saizi Mheshimiwa Spika haijajibiwa. Labda waziri achukue hii fursa kujibu hilo swali. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Hebu jibu hayo maswali mawili kwanza ndio tuendelee waziri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Swali la seneta wa Taita Taveta. Kwanza mkurugenzi wa maktaba hayupo, ako kule pwani katika warsha.
Tena usisumbuke sababu tulikuwa tunahitaji waziri, sio huyo mkurugenzi wa maktaba. Kwa hivyo waziri kama ako anajibu kila kitu, yako sawa kabisa.
Aya, asante. Masuala ya pesa za mishahara za wafanyikazi wa maktaba, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba katika zile maktaba ambazo zilikuwa devolved ama tulizipeana katika zile gatuzi, ni kwamba tulipeana wafanyikazi na pia tukapeana bajeti ambayo inasimamia wafanyikazi hao katika zile kaunti 33. Na jambo ambalo mheshimiwa amelizungumza, huo ndio ushahidi ambao naweza kupeana kufikia sasa, ama maelezo ambayo naweza kuyapeana kufikia sasa. And the question from Honorable Senator Mandago as to why the National Library or Maktaba Kuu is still withheld at the national level. Mr. Speaker, this is the practice even in the best devolved countries, such as United Kingdoms. And each country has a national library to serve as a repository of national reference materials and the issuance of ISBN number. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Lekina Rendama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me begin first of all by appreciating the candidness of the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary went straight to the point and said there are no plans. But I would wish that she had read her entire response, because then it would have made a lot of sense. Because in her entire response, she has given mitigating factors of how this problem can be resolved. And I don't know whether, Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet, even before I ask my supplementary question, for the purpose of the Hansard, and given that this question was asked by a colleague who is not here, just getting a response that says that it's devolved and the ministry has got no plan is a bit limiting. So, Mr. Speaker, one of my requests is that since the Cabinet Secretary had taken time to write a very detailed response, that when anyone listens to it will see that even if the function has been devolved, there are at least efforts that are being put. Having said that, and I'll leave that to you, Mr. Speaker, my question to the Cabinet Secretary has got to do with the issue of culture, heritage. Are there any plans by the ministry to set up cultures and heritage centers across the 47 counties? I was the first person to build a library in Narok County, but later on it was passed on to the ministry. But in terms of culture, I know in Narok County we had a National Museum Center. Are there any plans to be able to build this, fund them, and on each financial year, can the minister be able to tell us how much money is planned to be invested in such ventures? Because when I read from the headline, it says Ministry of Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. But then when I go to the Constitution, library services were devolved. So I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza niseme kwamba wanasema mgala muue lakini haki umpe. Nataka niseme nimefurahia sana kusikia waziri mmoja wa serikali hii akikiri kwamba kuna mambo ambaye ni ya ugatuzi ambaye serikali kuu haifai kuhusika, lakini kuna yale ambaye yanahusika na masuala ya serikali kuu. Ni waziri wa kwanza katika serikali hii ya Kenya Kwanza ambaye nimemsikia akisema hayo. Na imenishangaza kwa njia nzuri kwa sababu mara nyingi kunaletwa miswada katika bunge hili ambayo haina lolote kufanya na serikali kuu. Lakini pale mwisho naye amejikanganya. Kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, kama ni kweli hizi libraries zimegatuliwa ama zinafaa kusimamiwa na serikali za county, hiyo library ambayo iko katika county ya Nairobi pale Upper Hill, jibu ambalo Mheshimiwa waziri amelitoa halijaniridhisha hata kidogo Mheshimiwa. Kwa sababu alivyosema yeye kwamba kunahitajika pahali kuwekwe stakabadhi muhimu za kiserikali ambazo ni za kihistoria, ndio kwa maana tuna ile National Archives Mheshimiwa Speaker, ili kuweka serikali zile stakabadhi za kiserikali ambazo zinaweza kutumika kama references wakati ambapo masuala ya kitaifa yanajadiliwa. Kwa hivyo mimi bado sijaridhika Mheshimiwa Speaker, ni lazima jinsi ambavyo waziri amekiri kwamba huduma za maktaba zimegatuliwa, hiyo maktaba iliyoko Upper Hill iwekwe chini ya kaunti ya Nairobi. Hamna sababu yoyote, na kama kweli anaamini kila alichosema atuhakikishie na hakikishie watu wa Nairobi kwamba wiki hii hiyo maktaba itawekwa kwa mikono ya serikali ya kaunti ya Nairobi. Nakushukuru Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Waziri, kunayo maswali mawili, one from Senator Lekina and the other one from Senator for Nairobi County, Sifuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, responding to Senator for Narok, Honorable Oledama, I want to say that we shall revert on that response regarding cultural centers. Yes.
Rendama Olekina.
Yeah, asante, Bwana Speaker.
Malizie jibu, then tutarundi kwako.
Nimemaliza, Mr. Speaker.
The other question from the Nairobi Senator. Yeah, she'll give you a comprehensive report on the culture issues. Yeah. But Senator Sifuna, your answer was given again that, but also you are not satisfied. That's what you said. You are not satisfied. Can you satisfy Senator Sifuna on his question about the Nairobi?
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Speaker, Mheshimiwa Senator wa Nairobi, Mheshimiwa Sifuna. Asante, na sisi pia wakati mwingine tunaelewa majukumu ya serikali kuu na serikali za ugatuzi, na ukweli ni ukweli, hawezi kubadilika. Kwa hivyo ndivyo ilivyo. Lakini kwa maktaba kuu ambayo ofisi yangu iko pale kama waziri wa agenda, utamaduni na turathi za kitaifa, nataka niseme ya kwamba tumekuwa na mazungumzo ya kutosha na ya kina pamoja na Council of Governors, na tuna makubaliano ambao tunaenda kuafikiana kwa sababu ya yale niliyotangulia kuyasema kwanza kwamba maktaba kuu za kitaifa zinahifadhi kumbukumbu nyingi za masuala ya kitaifa. Kwa hivyo kwanza ziko 3, si hii tu peke yake ya ile maktaba kuu peke yake. Hapa Nairobi tuko na maktaba kuu, tuko na Buruburu na tuko na Nakuru County ambazo bado ziko katika mikono ya serikali kuu chini ya wizara hii ya Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. Kwa hivyo mazungumzo bado yanaendelea. Leo siwezi nikakupa jibu mwafaka ya kwamba wiki ijayo tutaenda kuachilia huduma hii muhimu iwe katika mikono ya county government ya Nairobi. Lakini punde tu tutakapoafikiana labda nitarudi hapa kuwapa ripoti kamili. Asante.
Hiyo ni sawa. Sasa then Senator Baz Sheikh Mohamed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to ask the Waziri, you know, as she rightly said, the function is developed, but the money has not been following for the function, especially as the chair of the devolution, where the employees have been experiencing salary problems. And it's only this financial year that the fund was released, but it's not completely released. It is only partially released. So I want to ask the Waziri, one other thing is, Honorable Speaker, before I ask her the question, actually the situations in the libraries is actually a pathetic situation. Most of the libraries in the counties are not well equipped. They are poorly staffed. So I wanted to ask, now that the functions are devolved and the county don't have the money for those, for the libraries, the books are not even there, and actually it's the right of every Kenyan to have knowledge and acquire knowledge from those libraries. Is there any plan for the National Library to release books or to equip those libraries? Are there, because most of the staff have not even reported up to now, especially in my place. And therefore, I was asking the Waziri whether all the staffs have been released, or they're still remaining. Some of them are still in national government. 2, whether there's any plan. You know, in the past, we used to have even mobile libraries. I can remember even in my place, we used to use camels to take the books to the far-fetched areas in the pastoral areas. But that thing is not there anymore. So what are the plans for the mobile libraries? Is it the mobile labs, libraries devolved, or are they still there? And is there more plans to release more librarians to the counties? Thank you.
Senator John Deritu.
Asante Bwana Spika. Langu ni swali tu kuuliza, ikiwa ndio nimemsikia waziri akisema ya kwamba kuna zile maktaba ambazo ni za kitaifa na akazitaja ni takriban 3. Zangu ni kuuliza zile zingine ambazo ziko katika gatuzi zetu wanazisaidia vipi kama serikali kuu, kwa sababu kitambo maktaba hizi zilikuweko lakini bado zilikuwa zinapata usaidizi kutoka kwa serikali kuu. Usaidizi wa serikali kuu tayari wameleta hela katika kaunti zetu ama hela bado ziko katika serikali kuu? Asante Bwana Spika.
Waziri.
Asante sana Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, kwa kweli nafikiri tu nimejieleza sana kuhusu masuala haya ya kwamba tumegatua pia masuala haya ya maktaba, na sisi kama serikali kuu tulifanya jukumu letu baada ya kugatua hizi maktaba kwa gatuzi zile ambazo tulipeleka kila kitu, wafanyikazi na bajeti. Sasa nafikiri management na ni vipi serikali inasaidia ya kitaifa, nafikiri jukumu hilo mimi ningesema ya kwamba ni lenu nyinyi sasa wabunge, kuhakikisha ya kwamba zile pesa ambazo mnazigawa hapa kwenda kwa county, then zile county za kule chini, zile bunge za kule mashinani ama county assemblies nafikiri mna sauti kubwa zaidi kuhakikisha ya kwamba pesa zaidi zimewekwa katika kumanage zile libraries kule chini mashinani. Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mwaruma, you have approached me that you are not satisfied with your question. Which part of it are you not comfortable with?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I'm actually not satisfied by the response that was given by the CS about the money for promotions of the employees who are working for the Kenya National Library Services. And Mr. Speaker, this is a question that came from a union that represents the employees working for Kenya National Library Services. And they did indicate that there was money that was released to the department in the ministry in charge of Kenya National Library Services, which was meant to promote the employees. Mr. Speaker, that money was released before the unbundling of library services. Now, these employees were supposed to be promoted. But because the services were unbundled before they were promoted, the employees do not know what became of the money that was meant to promote them. So now they have gone to the counties before they are promoted, and they are asking what happens to that money. If they, at all, Mr. Speaker, Senator, they have been promoted.
Senator Maluma, let me assist you.
Yes, please.
Because you mentioned that you have a statement on this matter. So I request that maybe the committee involved to expedite your statement so that she can have time, because that is really a substantial matter. She can get time, the CS can get time to reply to a statement substantively.
Well,
that is the best way to go. But now we did I indirected that the chair concerned. Which committee did you refer the question to?
I think labor or something.
Yeah, maybe check, and then we have directed that they should really expedite.
Yeah, so that we get to know if the employees really were promoted.
Yes, yes.
Then we get the names of the employees that were promoted, from which grade up to which grade, and how the remuneration changed.
Thank you,
Well guided, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, because you cannot get such an answer maybe at this juncture from the CS. So I've then guided you in that manner. Last, but no, there is the Senator Abdullahi Milaj. You want to give vote of thanks?
Asante mwenyekiti, asante Spika, na nipende pia mimi kumkaribisha waziri, na nipende kujulisha bunge la Seneti ya kwamba katika kamati yetu ya leba tuko na mapendekezo ya mswada wa usimamizi na ni jinsi gani usimamizi wa hizi libraries zitakuwa zinasimamiwa maktaba zetu. Na mswada huu umependekezwa na Senator Commissioner Madam Joyce Korir. Labda baada ya kujulishwa kwamba function hii imeweza kugatuliwa kwa gatuzi zetu, ni muhimu sana waziri, na hili ni ombi kwa sababu umejieleza vizuri ya kwamba usimamizi wote pamoja na rasilimali za kusimamia maktaba hizi umeenda katika gatuzi. Ni muhimu kama serikali kuu muweze kuangalia, kwa sababu maktaba hizi zimebaki kama mahame. Moja yetu kama pale katika gatuzi ya Mombasa imechoka sana, hata vitabu vilivyoko pale vimechoka. Ili tu tusikwepe majukumu kwa kusema kwamba yamegatuliwa, tuweze tu kushirikiana na magavana kuona ya kwamba mantiki na malengo ambayo yalikuwa yamelengwa kwa maktaba yale yaweze kuafikiwa, yaweze kuboreshwa maktaba yale, na kila ambacho kinaendelea katika maktaba yale yawe ni yenye kumfaidi Mkenya, kwa sababu wengi wataona ni kana kwamba sasa kuna kirba goji kirba ya kwamba majukumu yameenda huku yamerudi huku. Kile ambacho cha zaidi mwananchi anahitaji ni huduma nzuri katika hizi taasisi tunapozipitia. Na pia kama alivyotangulia kusema Bwana Spika, niweze kutoa vote of thanks, niweze kusema shukrani kwa waziri kuweza kufika. Asante sana.
Yours was just a comment. So I want to close with Senator Wakilifi, Sewa Mazayo, Minority Leader.
Asante Bwana Spika. Asante sana Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nataka kuchukua nafasi hii pengine kama seneta wa Kilifi, nikijua kwamba waziri aliyeko ndani ya bunge la Senate ni dada kutoka Kilifi, na kwa mara ya kwanza mimi mwenyewe nilikuwa sijampatia kongole, lakini sasa nataka kumpatia kongole rasmi kama seneta wa Kilifi kwa vile alichaguliwa kuwa waziri wa Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage. Kwa hiyo hiyo ni nafasi kubwa ambao watu wa Kilifi waliweza kupewa. Naweza kumshukuru sana rais kwa kumchagua dadangu Jumwa. Najua tumetoka naye mbali, alikuwa women rep, akaja akakuwa MP. Sasa mambo mingi amekuwa akifanya. Kwa hiyo yeye najua kazi hii anaiweza sana kwa vile ametumia ujasiri kujibu maswali. Asante sana Bwana Spika.
Asante kiongozi wa wachache. Kwa hivyo waziri, tunakushukuru sana kwa kufika hapa Seneti, na tunakuomba mara ukiitwa hapa, unajua hii ni nyumba ya watu wamekomaa, hawana mambo mengi. Usiwe na shaka kufika hapa. Hata kama hujaitwa saa nyingine unakuja mwenyewe kutusalimia. Kwa hivyo nakushukuru na heri njema katika wizara, katika kazi unayoifanya. Asante sana. So we go on back now to the business we had. Senator Mandago, you can proceed with the bill on pending bills, the motion on pending bills.
Order number 9, motion, status of pending bills in counties.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I had reason to support the motion by Senator Ledamo Lekina. And particularly of interest, Senator Speaker, are the pending bills in counties. And my submission to this House, Honorable Speaker, is that in the budget-making process of 2024-25 financial year by our county governments, Honorable Speaker, that the...
Senator Mandago, you have 14 minutes.
Thank you. That in the budget-making process of the financial year 2024-2025 financial year, Honorable Speaker, by our county governments, that the controller of budget ensures that all county governments' budgets for all pending bills that have been verified and ascertained that they are due for payment to the suppliers and contractors in counties. Honorable Speaker, the second matter on that motion, Honorable Speaker, is the misappropriation of funds where funds have been requested for payments to particular services or contractors, but as funds hit the county accounts, they've been diverted to pay for other services that had not been requested for and approved by the Controller of Budget. Honorable Speaker, in this motion, the Controller of Budget should then be asked to ensure that all pending bills subsequently in the new budget are paid before any other funds are dispersed to any county. Honorable Speaker, these pending bills have not only killed enterprises, but they have killed employment opportunities to the many young people this country have who are trained, qualified, and able to work, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the private sector collaborates with government in creation of employment opportunities. And therefore, county governments can then not become the agents of killing those enterprises and killing the dreams of young Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, the other matter that we need addressed through this motion is the issue of multi-year projects, Honorable Speaker, that run in counties. And because of transition, Honorable Speaker, the new administrations through supplementary budgets transfer the monies meant for those projects, stalling the projects, creating pending bills, and wastage of public resources because those facilities are then not completed for purposes that were intended for. Honorable Speaker, all projects are subject to public participation in the establishment. They are subject to being budgeted for, and therefore, when supplementary budgets are being passed, we would like to ask the controller of budget to ensure that ongoing projects funds are not transferred to new projects, causing the old projects to stall and therefore creating wastage of public resources. Honorable Speaker, this House in the near future must also address the issue of transitions of county governments, Honorable Speaker. We were in Nyandarua County the other day, Honorable Speaker, accompanying the distinguished senator of Nyandarua during the county address. Under the county headquarters of Nyandarua, Honorable Speaker, we found a county headquarters that was started more than 10 years ago. It was not completed because administration that followed decided to abandon those projects. It is now that the current governor of Nyandarua is completing projects that otherwise would have been completed much earlier, denying the people of Nyandarua services that they would have been served with, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, the controller of budget and our officers must have a keen eye on all supplementary budgets being done by counties, particularly the ones that transfer funds from one project to new projects. And Honorable Speaker, the control measures that ensures that a project that was not budgeted for should not be introduced in the middle of financial year should be enhanced. I don't understand how new projects crop up in the middle of the financial year that didn't have budgets in the first place. This is rebudgeting within a budget without approval, without public participation, and therefore creating wastage in terms of stalled projects and ballooning the pending bills, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the other area the controller of budget must be keen, and I think this House must review, in terms of the formula for allocation of resources, the requirement for increase of on-source revenue, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, a majority of counties are not being honest in the capacity and the resources available to be generated through on-source revenue. Honorable Speaker, counties that are honest have suffered the consequences of getting less resources because of that factor of increase in on-source revenue. That factor, Honorable Speaker, doesn't have any scientific measure for measuring. Honorable Speaker, I remember in the second term, Honorable Speaker, a county would get an increase of 600 million for just increasing revenue by 10, 40, 50 million. Compared to what they had projected, Honorable Speaker, then the percentage would look big and they would get additional resources, and yet they have no capacity to raise those resources. Controller of budget must interrogate the on-source revenue figures being given during budget making process to ensure that counties are not spending money they will not be able to raise. These spending bills has become a very, very bad practice in county governments and even national government, but we want to thank the President. In the national government, resources have been set aside. A pending bills committee is working to ensure that only verifiable and payable pending bills are paid so that enterprises and business people can go back to business, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I wish to agree with the Senator for Marsabit, because if when you delay paying your taxes, there is a penalty and there is no room for negotiation. Consequently, when government, either county or national government, delays in paying our suppliers, Honorable Speaker, then the penalty accruing from delayed payments must also be paid. It cannot be, it is good when citizens are paying penalties, and when government is supposed to pay the penalties, there is a problem. Honorable Speaker, these business people have suffered for many years because of not paying their bills. I support that they should be given some form of compensation for the delay of payment. Honorable Speaker, in order to avoid the issue of pending bills, the controller of budget in approval of release of funds, because it's based on certificates and minutes of receiving goods or services or completion, Honorable Speaker, from the date the certificate is received and authorized by the county. That should be the time that bill is due, and as per the contract clauses, whatever period of time is required to be paid within, then those contracts or services that have been rendered must be paid for. This is the only way, Honorable Speaker, we are going to grow the private sector. We are going to create employment, because government alone cannot be able to address the issue of employment. Honorable Speaker, this administration is very keen in supporting young people to innovate, particularly using technology, Honorable Speaker. And that is why national government has rolled out a digital economy that is very vibrant by establishing and installing all the fiber networks across the country so that internet can be available. When these young innovators come to the platform where they are now able to do business with government, it cannot be then that county governments or government agencies and SAGAs are the ones killing the innovation by not paying for the services that have been rendered by these young people, Honorable Speaker. That will be negating on what government is doing in ensuring that our young people take advantage of the digital space and the digital economy to also innovate further and earn themselves decent livelihoods, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I therefore agree with my colleagues that the controller of budget is in a better position to ensure there is prudence, there is no misappropriation of resources, and Honorable Speaker, as this motion will be concluded, we should ask the controller of budget to submit to this House a report of every county of the payments that have been requested and what has been paid for, so that we can ascertain with certainty how much of the funds that have been released meant for payment to suppliers, specific suppliers and contractors, have been misappropriated in paying contractors whose payments had not been approved by the controller of budget, and what measures the controller of budget is putting in place to ensure that those whose payments have not been certified for payment are not paid. Honorable Speaker, there is need for integration of the system of the controller of budget to IFMIS to enable, and the Treasury and the County Treasury, Honorable Speaker, to enable the controller of budget to be able to monitor real time, to check the payments, and even stop payments for suppliers and contractors whose payments had not been approved by the controller of budget. That way, Honorable Speaker, our counties will be prudent and our suppliers will be able to thrive. Private sector will be able to continue creating employment and supporting government programs of creating employment for the many young people in the country. And we shall have a vibrant private sector, Honorable Speaker, that will then improve our business environment, attract more investors into this country and into this region and to our counties to be able to do business with counties. Where we have reached, Honorable Speaker, there are very few counties whose contract banks can afford to give loans to the suppliers. I therefore, Honorable Speaker, support this motion and say the controller of budget must have a very keen eye in making sure that we don't continue creating pending bills. I submit, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Miracle Senator Karungo Dangwa Paul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to also weigh in on this issue of pending bills. And for sure, we have discussed this issue on numerous occasions on the floor of this House. And from the onset, Mr. Speaker, it is time for this House to stamp its feet and to make sure that we help the county governments to reduce these pending bills by coming up with solutions, of course, sanctions, and calling those who are not paying this amount, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was in Kiambu County, and I was leading a delegation that was led by Senator Mandago. I was leading them, though they were led by Senator Mandago, the Committee of Health, to visit the Kiambu Referral Hospital. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we happened to interact with people. We even went to visit the governor of Kiambu County at his headquarters. And it caused a lot of excitement, Mr. Speaker, because when a senator was seen handshaking the governor, it caused a bit of excitement, Mr. Speaker. Just like an uncle, when an uncle used to visit us
when we were young. We'll go to the whole village saying an uncle is here, he has come to see us, and he has brought a few presents. But if you misbehaved, the same uncle would remove his belt and whip you. So this is just to tell those who are excited, it was just a visit, and I'm back at work to make sure that I'm oversighting the same county governor. Mr. Speaker, the issue of pending bills, some of them is self-inflicted. The county governments are not paying the workers. That is the wage bill they're talking about. They're saying the wage bill is way high. But it is not that the wage bill is high. It's because they are not paying workers on time. Yesterday in Kiambu Hospital, we were told, Mr. Speaker, that the casuals, the hospital casuals, what we call subordinate staff, the cleaners, the kitchen people, they have not been paid by the county government of Kiambu for the last 6 months. And somebody is in the hospital working for the patients and trying to save lives, and is working at the hospital and has not been paid for the last 6 months, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether we can call that also pending bills. Do we call it a wage bill that has been delayed? Do we say salaries that has not been paid, Mr. Speaker? And having said that, Mr. Speaker, these are parents. They have children. Their children are going to school, and the county government of Kiambu is not paying their salaries on time, Madam Speaker. And, you know, when I was in high school, Mr. Speaker, sorry, when I was in high school, one of the set books that we did was the government inspector. And the government inspector, when he wanted to visit a certain city, he announced. And after announcing that he's coming, the children were cleaned, they were given good clothes, the mayor had prepared his officers, and that is what happened yesterday when the Committee of Health visited Kiambu County, Kiambu Referral Hospital. They announced they are going. So the patients were cleaned, the bed sheets were cleaned. So we were only shown the best part, Mr. Speaker. And I would want to urge the Committee of Health, next time don't announce, do an impromptu visit so that you can see the real picture and talk to those people. There was a certain woman who was trying to talk to me, Mr. Speaker. And she could be barred from speaking to me because they did not want the chairman of the health committee to understand a cleaner picture of that hospital from that perspective, Mr. Speaker. On the issue of pending bills, why do we have pending bills, Mr. Speaker? We have pending bills because the governors over-project their own source revenue. And I'll be bringing a statement tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, because we have to investigate the budgeting process of Kiambu County, Mr. Speaker, because we want to understand the wisdom behind over-projecting your own source revenue by over 300%. Kiambu County used to collect about 3 billion, but the current governor, with his wisdom and magic, he thinks that he can collect 9 billion within a period of 1 year, Mr. Speaker. And since it was put in the budget, of course, what they are going to do, Mr. Speaker, they overspend what they don't have. So that is more pending bills created on top of the 5.7 billion that the county government owes the people of Kiambu, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the contractors are suffering. The Kiambu service providers are suffering, Mr. Speaker. And you know the court said that any contractor or anybody who is owed any amount by the county government can auction county properties. Mr. Speaker.
Takarungu, you'll have your 9 minutes next time. Maybe today afternoon, so you shouldn't be around. So, honorable senators, it is now 1 p.m., time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate, therefore, stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, 24th April 2024, at 2:30 p.m.